Aaron, I appreciate you coming on. This is kind of like a fun little moment for me because we've had countless conversations off the record, so to speak.
Don't air quotes it. Like they're okay conversations. There's no like government secrets or anything.
Fair, but this is the first one I think that we have actual cameras filming us, so this is interesting for me.
Not for me.
Oh,
I
fair.
have cameras filming my stuff all the time.
That's interesting.
And that's why we're here.
If someone doesn't know you, they're gonna be led to believe that could be a little bit of everything. So what do you mean by you?
I guess I should probably clarify what that means. Hi, if I've not met any of you out there before, my name is Erin. Online, you can find me under Aureylian, which is a terrible name. Don't recommend the branding. Aureylian. For a while, I was a full-time influencer, got in the gaming space, was on the Disney Channel, done a bunch of like random stuff. And then I transitioned that role into working in the gaming industry. So I worked for Twitch, which is a gaming live streaming platform, and kind of accidentally became one of the faces of that platform for a while, which was an interesting experience. And now I work at Riot Games as the global head of community and run social, influencer, media, all that good stuff.
I actually did not know about the Disney Channel stuff, to be honest
I
with
actually
you.
was on the Disney Channel. That's true.
To what extent? For what?
I did a PR campaign for them. Remember, well, you might not because you didn't have kids at the time, but there was like Skylanders, like the little toys. Disney did their own version called Disney Infinity, where you could like make these little characters and you could set them in this digital world. It was like pre-Roblox, like you could make your own world. And I was one of the influencers that they paid to do like interstitial content on the Disney Channel to promote Disney Infinity, which is what it was called.
Were you an adult at the time or still a child?
Yeah. No, I was like a full adult.
I think
this was only like 8 or 9 years ago.
You're gonna be on the next Netflix documentary.
Yeah,
like,
that's right. Yeah,
they were sucking on my feet.
Yeah. No, nothing like that untoward or unseemly happened. They were wonderful to work with. Please, mouse, don't come after me. But no, I did interstitial content.
She said, "Mouse, don't come after me."
Mickey's scary, you
he's,
know. Very
he's
litigious.
Powerful. He's very powerful.
Mickey is very powerful and litigious.
I'm gonna sue you.
Yeah, so we're not gonna go there. But no, it was a great experience. But yeah, I was like actually on, which was really funny because I had friends that had kids at the time, and they would like text me and be like, "Did I just see you on the Disney Channel?" And I was like, "Yes, you did."
Hair flip. I might be.
It was. But yeah, it was fun.
So I actually know you because I actually know your brother. I trained with
right.
Chris, and through Chris, I actually met you.
You trained me for 30 seconds too.
That was fun.
I can say you were my trainer because for 2 sessions, you were my trainer.
You hyperventilated in your backyard.
I did. I passed out, and you were like, "I'm done. Never again."
I was mortified because I was like, if this lady dies on my second session,
my best friend's sister
I'm
dies.
the biggest piece of shit.
Anyway.
And JP was streaming, and like you were like, JP knows where my inhaler is. Go to JP. And I'm like freaking out. I was like, okay, sure. I run down the stairs. JP's midstream. I knock on the door like, hey, Aaron's dying. And JP's like, I can't hear you. I go, okay. And I just close the door.
Yeah, for those who don't know, that is my ex-partner. And he is also full-time content creator.
Me, JP.
Yeah, that's right.
But I was going to say, like, the way I met you was through Chris.
Yep.
And your story to me is a fascinating one because you've kind of melded the corporate and creative worlds in a way that I haven't seen anybody else do. Mm-hmm. You have a formal education, yes or no?
I do, yeah.
And what is that degree in?
I have 2 degrees. Okay. I have a degree in corporate communications and a degree in nonprofit administration.
So you communicate corporately?
I am so corporate. We can put a pin in that, and we can circle back later when we can have more synergy around the topic.
No, but the reason I bring that up is because, like, I want to know how you even started with Minecraft YouTubing. Like, that was the thing that kind of propelled you.
Yeah.
And more or less got you even in the sights of Twitch. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So I think like we got to take one step back, right? Because I know I don't look my age, but I don't actually. I'm 30. I'll be 38 in a couple of months. So, and I say all that not to talk about being young or whatever, but because when I was in college in 2004, 2005, like Facebook didn't exist. YouTube was barely around, right? And so none of that stuff now, like I think folks growing up now and just now entering the job market have had years and years of social media experience. And back then, to get on Facebook, you had to have a college email, and my college didn't even have its own email address. And so like I couldn't even get on Facebook when I was in college. So that's important, I think, to let everybody know that like I had no idea what I was doing. Like never at any point was I was like, oh, I'm going to strategize like how to get there, right? It just like kind of happened. And so I went to college for corporate comms and for nonprofit admin. I was working at a nonprofit hospital doing education for physicians and nurses, got married very young, had a baby very young, was a stay-at-home mom. And when I was going through all of that, I had a late-term miscarriage, and I was so depressed, like couldn't get out of bed, just absolutely devastated at what we were going through. And it was really hard for me to kind of find the joy again. And my husband at the time had said, hey, like, why don't we start getting you back into video games? I've always played video games. I was like into The Sims. I've played The Sims for over 20 years. I played WoW so hardcore when I was in college. And he was like, why don't you get back into gaming again? There's this new game. It's in beta. It's called Minecraft. And I was like, that game looks so dumb. And he said, well, what if me and your brother, so him and my brother, got together and they coded a version of Minecraft that was kind of like World of Warcraft. There were two different factions. You couldn't see the text of the other faction, and there were boundaries, and you could steal their chests, and you could do different stuff. And so he'd said, what if we make a version of World of Warcraft in Minecraft, and then you can play that? And I was like, cool. And he goes, okay, you go out, because I'd been part of our guild, and wow. He said, you go out and you go on Twitter and find people to come on our server and play. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went onto Twitter and I did what like every YouTuber or streamer will tell you not to do. And I just like looked at people who had Minecraft in their bio, and I would just tweet at them, be like, do you want to play Minecraft with me? And I did, literally. And one of the guys replied, and he was a YouTuber, and he was like, yeah, I'll play. And I was like, cool, here's the server information. He's like, cool, will you stream it with me? And I was like, well, what does that mean? And because again, this is like 2012 maybe. And he said, well, we're going to play it and people are going to watch us.
In 2012, when was it that Justin TV turned to Twitch? I forget.
It was around 2012.
It was around that time.
Yeah.
Okay, so like this is still like a...
It was technically 2011 when Twitch launched.
Okay.
But Justin TV had been around since 2009.
Correct.
But it wasn't as like what it was then.
No, it was a little
Twitch
bit more...
was like very much in its infancy. Twitch was only about a year old. And back then, there used to be a website called Livestream, and people streamed on Livestream. Like people weren't streaming. That like wasn't the popular medium like it was today. But he was a YouTuber, and he liked to stream sometimes just to connect with people in real time. And so he said, we're going to stream it and people are going to watch us. And I was like, that sounds like the dumbest stuff. Like, who is going to watch somebody else play video games? That sounds so stupid. But I was like, whatever, if you'll like play Minecraft with me, then we'll do it. So I figured out how to, do it. It was Skype back then. It wasn't even Discord because we didn't have that. And so I figured out how to download Skype and like get on this call.
Do you remember Ventrilo?
Yes, I had a Ventrilo. I also used IRC back in the day.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a throwback now.
Yeah. And so
do these companies still exist?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for
Somewhere
them.
in the
Discord's like barely.
MySpace is still technically around. So
all Tom wanted to do was be your friend.
All he wanted to do, like he's a simple man, like why do we hate him so much? So so I streamed, and his audience was like, you are so funny, you should start a YouTube channel. And I was like, okay.
Bet.
How hard can it be, right? It's very hard, actually. But at the time, again, you have to go back. This was 14 years ago. There were not a lot of, in the demographic of people making YouTube content, were not a lot of gamers. Were not a lot of gamers that were making kid-friendly content. And of those people making kid-friendly content were not also women and then moms. Like my demographic, I think I might have been the only mom making kid-friendly Minecraft content at the time. And that's important because immediately, like Cheerios, like all of these brands were like, we want to work with you. Do you want to work with us? Because I was intelligent. I could hold a conversation. I knew how to communicate. I knew what type of content to make because my daughter was consuming the content that I was making. And so it wasn't because I was good, right? Like, I get to think that I'm funny, but it wasn't necessarily because I was good. It was because I filled a niche hole in the market.
They say that there's a mathematical equation to luck, and it's where opportunity meets preparation.
Yes.
Would you say that you were prepared for the opportunities that presented themselves for you?
I wasn't in that regard. I don't think that I was for that, because I think for me, I was like, oh, this is really fun. And like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I don't, this is like a fun hobby for me. And I don't think that I had, because I wasn't part of YouTube culture, right? A lot of people grow up watching YouTube videos, and so they learn how to make YouTube videos. Like, I thought I was listening to like the Gregory brothers, right, on YouTube, and like, do you know who they are? Bag it up, bag it up, bag it up.
Would you be upset if I said I had no idea.
They're old school YouTube, like old school YouTube.
I got to be honest with you. I was not like big on any of these things until I pretty much got to college myself. Like my freshman year of college, we're talking about 2012. So like when you're starting this, that's when I'm first realizing that like, I think
there's internet culture.
Yeah, like my senior year of high school. So I'm 31.
Yeah.
My senior year of high school, I finally got on Facebook and I was so upset because I remember I have always been late to every social media. When everyone had MySpace, I was like, that sounds stupid, whatever. And then while everyone was transitioning to Facebook, I was like, fine, I'll make a MySpace.
Yeah.
I make a MySpace and everyone's like, Aaron, you got to get on Facebook.
And you're now making a podcast in 2024.
I know. Listen, like all my exes would tell you, I'm a late bloomer.
It's fine. It's fine. So like I say that because I actually didn't know what kind of content to make, but I knew one of the things I didn't want to do was go watch anybody else because I was afraid that I would try too hard to mimic what it was supposed to be, which means if you go back and look at my early videos, which are all still available, they're trash. They're garbage. And part of it's technology, right? Microphone qualities have improved, cameras have improved, that kind of stuff. But actually just how entertaining the content is, changed over time because I started learning through trial and error myself what was resonating with audiences, what wasn't. So in that instance, I don't think that I knew what I was like signing up for. I think the moment for me where that like actually happened was we got to fast forward. We got in the timeline. I went through divorce. I was working a really like crappy IT job that was horrible. I was making $30,000 a year, working 60 hours a week as a single mom, like struggling to make ends meet. It was awful. And I was still doing YouTube. So I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I would get up, I would get my daughter ready, I would drop her to daycare, I would get into the office by 7:30, I'd work from 7:30 to 5:30, I'd get back in the car, I'd go pick her up at 6:15, we'd get home at 7, I'd feed her, we'd do dinner, till 8:30, 9 o'clock. I would record YouTube videos from 9 o'clock until 2 o'clock in the morning.
After you put her to bed.
After I put her to bed, I would record, edit, upload, thumbnail. I was doing it all myself, managing all my own social media, and not monetizing any of it because you couldn't back then unless you were under what was called an MCN, which is a multi-channel network. So it's basically like an ad agency. But
when you say multi-channel
network, yeah.
Was that like the machinima and stuff like that
Yes,
back
it was like
in the
a
day?
machinima, yeah, that type of stuff. And so
This is like a blast from the past kind of conversation.
So like I wasn't doing any of that because I couldn't afford to get locked into a contract, and I was pretty wary of like predatorial type contracts.
Of course.
And so, but I knew that I was like doing well because I would get these brands that would reach out and say, do you want to work with us? Or conventions would say, do you want to fly out and be part of our content or whatever? But then I'd go to bed at 2 and I'd wake up at 6. Like your body can only run on 4 hours of sleep. I was downing like 5-hour energies at work. I mean, I think you met me back then. I was like 115 pounds. I was thin. I was gaunt. I was like sick all the time. And my parents, after a year of that, were like, look, you can't do this, right? And so why don't you quit your job and we will pay your bills for the next 6 months because we think that you can do this, whatever this YouTube thing is, which was like a funny like side note thing to tell your parents of like, hey, I make videos on the internet. And my parents were like, what kind of videos?
Sweating.
Yeah. My dad was like, what do you mean? I was like, it's video games. It's fine. It's okay. And so they were like, hey, we think that there's a chance. One, you're so sick. Like just, and not like coughing sick, but like just, I was tired. I was exhausted. I was dying, I think, like slowly over time. My soul was just like fading away.
It's mentally draining to go from a 9 to 5, also be a single mom, and then try to produce content that is creative.
Well, creative and where you're chastised all the time because back then there were not a lot of women on the internet, right? The thing on the internet back then, there was a lot of reply girls on YouTube. And so just like women there were like a lot of things that we had to face vitriol wise and that type of thing. That
I have no idea what reply.
Reply girls were like really attractive girls who would watch a YouTube video and then comment on the YouTube video, which is like kind of the meta now, like people watching other people's content and comment on it. It started with reply girls back then.
And the goal of this was to do what? Try to
ad revenue. Because they would want to watch the girls reply to the content.
Oh.
Right?
So basically trying to advertise
it's just
on
chatting.
your
It's kind of like
stuff.
just, yeah. Right. And so that's when like DMCA and fair use and all that kind of came up. So there was a lot of stigma about being a woman on the internet. So like kind of morally it was exhausting, but I was having a lot of fun. I was doing this thing. I was meeting lots of new people with, again, for someone who went through a divorce, who walked away with no friends, no social life, no whatever, like this was my connection to the outside. And so during that period of time, they said, quit your job. I was like, cool, I'm going to quit. I had spent that year, right, meeting other people who were doing Minecraft YouTube videos. And then I kind of became the group mom because a lot of the most popular, I mean, it's real. A lot of the most popular folks at the time were like younger, 18, 19-year-old, you know, I say kids, but they were kids.
I mean, they're kids.
They were kids. And so, you know, when there would be conventions, I would be like, did you get your ticket? Do you know where you're going? Can I help you here? And so all of these people were like, Erin will schedule our collaborations. I'd say, okay, everybody meet on Tuesday at 6. We're going to record. Here's the upload schedule. I'll send it to everybody on Slack. And I became like kind of this like admin for Minecrafters, you know, for events and for IRL, whatever. And so when I quit my job, it was the month of December. And so I was like, I'm going to do an advent calendar. And every person I've ever helped in Minecraft, I'm going to call them up and ask me to do a different Minecraft map. And I'll do an advent calendar that year, that month. And I went from like 30,000 subs to 75,000 subs.
What is an advent calendar?
Advent is like for Christmas, you know, you like open the little door every day and you get like a little piece of candy.
Gotcha.
So I did like a digital version of that where like, and today it's going to be Bajan Canadian, tomorrow it's going to be Jerome ASF, and the next day it's going to be Sky Does Minecraft, and then it's Captain Sparkles, and it's like whoever.
A lot of collaboration with these other content creators and kind of bringing
that
everybody's
had really
communities
well-established channels that I had known for a long time, but never like, you know, called in any favors, so to speak. And so I did that, and it like exploded my channel, doubled it, and 75,000 subs back then was a lot. Wow. That was like 1 million today. And so it started doing really, really well. My channel started taking off. Again, I was still not monetized at the time. And I was making no ad revenue.
Were you at least like monetizing in the sense of like sponsorships?
Yeah.
Things? Okay, so there was money coming in, but not necessarily.
I mean, if there was money coming in at that time, I was maybe making $5,000 to $10,000 a year on it.
Okay, so
it
definitely
wasn't
not
a
enough to live
full-time
on.
job.
Yeah.
No.
Extra cash here and there.
But that trajectory is what got me to get noticed enough to be able to say, okay, where am I going to monetize and what MCM am I going to work with? Because now they were like, oh, she's got some chops. She's got some legs behind the content that she wants to do.
I think there's a story behind that, though, like the fact that you were doing it for those first couple of years as like a passion project, something that you enjoyed doing. Yes, the monetization was there, but it wasn't necessarily like money that you could, quote unquote, live off of, nor was it like an enticing amount. Like when you say you would work the 9 to 5, pick up your kid, make dinner, put him to bed, and then like still do the creative content afterwards, kind of burning the candle on both ends. Yeah. It wasn't because you were, quote unquote, crushing it.
No, I wasn't. And what's interesting is I think part of the reason why I was doing it was twofold. One, because it was my attachment to some type of outside world, like that was my social life. And two, I had a couple of friends who were in that content space, the one who got me into it, and I had a couple of others. And I never, and this is probably why I ended up taking the career path that I took, I never saw myself as like a PewDiePie, as a like Jenna Marbles. I never saw myself as like one of those people who's gonna be famous on YouTube. One, I just didn't have an interest in doing it. I don't like, why are you looking at me? I don't like, it's like not who I am. I'm super introverted. And two, it was fun, but content creation lacks a lot of like, what am I doing with my life? What is my greater purpose? Who am I helping here, right? And I just knew that I wanted to do more than that. And so I had people saying like, Erin, you're funny, you're good. And for somebody who like was very insecure, it felt rewarding. It felt rewarding to be told like, you're funny and this. And I was getting letters from little girls that were like, you make me feel like it's okay to be a girl who plays video games. And the emotional appeal of that was like really more to me than the money part of it. And because I had people telling me, you can do this, I kept doing it. Even if I didn't believe in myself and even if I didn't think I was going to be a Jenna Marbles, people telling me that they thought that I was funny, my content was good, was enough incentive for me to continue believing in myself even when I didn't.
You brought up this like feeling of like emptiness that comes with this of like, what kind of value do I provide? What is it that I am creating? How early or how late did those feelings start to manifest? I mean, and another question on that one, do you think that's something that like you felt exclusively? Have you had conversations with other content creators where this is like a more common feeling where they have to kind of like reinvigorate themselves? Because I personally think it has to be an exhausting job to be creative and entertaining day in and day out. And if you take a week off, your competitors aren't, and you might feel like you're slipping, and then you become like fixated on this viewership, on how many views did this get, how many interactions did it get, what was my peak this week compared to last week, and it becomes like you can
never go back.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe we'll cut it in here. editor guru. I did like a 2-minute video about this recently because this came up online about creators and burnout and is the job hard? And every job is hard. Like, just for what it's worth, every job, being a nurse is hard, being a teacher is hard, being a policeman. Dude, this job is hard.
Even porn stars say they're going to work.
Right. I mean, every job has it's why multimillionaires get stressed out. Like, money is not the only problem solver. Fame is not the only problem solver. The thing with content creation is, in a normal career path, in a typical career path, you are working towards a raise, a job title promotion. You are working towards a bonus when you do well. You get to finish a project and see the completion of that project and the success that that project had on whatever like goals that you have for your business. You have none of that in content creation because your pay is based on your popularity. And so there is 100%, everybody will peak and plateau and then drop. It doesn't matter how good of an actor you are. It doesn't matter whatever. You will always peak and then you will drop. And so creators have this like, I'm pushing. And the second that they stop pushing, they take a break, they go on vacation, whatever, they're like, oh my God, is that the start of my, have I peaked, right? And we all talk about, oh, you peaked in high school. Creators are constantly worried about, did I peak today? Was last Tuesday the day that I peaked? And so what you do is completely reinvent yourself cyclically all the time. You're always chasing a meta. You're always chasing a goal. It's so exhausting. It's mentally exhausting. Imagine doing that and having no greater purpose than just chasing a number. Like, what are you here on this earth to do?
It's troubling because one of the things that, so I constantly think about the future, not just because I have a daughter now, but just in general. Like, even when I was younger, I used to think, where do I want to be in the future?
Same.
What do I want that to look? Now, as a father, that scope has kind of expanded for me. It's like, what kind of world will we leave behind for the next generation?
What's our legacy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that kind of scares me is this trajectory that the youth have now. It used to be that you asked a kid when they were in like, elementary school, like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
I want to be a president. I want to be a
fireman.
Policeman.
Yeah.
An astronaut.
Yeah.
Now it's like the overwhelming answer to that question is, I want to be a YouTuber.
And it's not great.
It's not great for a multitude of reasons. I don't want to say it's not healthy, but not everyone can be an entrepreneur, right? Like, not everyone can work the 9 to 5. Not everyone can work in like a service sector where they have to speak with people. Like, everybody has different skill sets.
We have something in society that we can fill a role for.
Correct.
Yes. And there are things like I've had this talk. I literally have a presentation that I've given when my kiddo was growing up, right? I'd go to her elementary school. She'd say, oh, my mom's a YouTuber, which I was, right? I was on the Disney Channel. Friends were seeing me on the Disney Channel. And so the teachers would say, will you come in and like talk to the kids about whatever? And I would tell every kid, just so you know, you should not be a YouTuber when you grow up. And I know that that's hard for you to hear at 8, 9, 10 years old, but let me explain. How many of you play a sport? And they'd all raise their hand. I'd say, okay, what sport do you play? Basketball, soccer, whatever. And they'd say, I play basketball. I'm like, okay, cool. You play basketball. How many people in basketball are like LeBron James? I'm like, well, one, it's LeBron James. I'm like, okay, that's how YouTubing is. And that doesn't mean that if you spend the next 15 years playing basketball, that you can't be in the NBA. You can grow up and be in the NBA, right? But most of the people who grow up playing basketball are not going to be in the NBA. But what can you be? A coach? You can work in marketing for the NBA. You can be a trainer. You can be a physical therapist. You can be somebody who runs logistics for the stadium. You can do press. You can do comms. You can do all those things. And you can still play basketball in your free time, right? So you can make YouTube content. And you can grow up and do what I was doing then at the time, which was doing community work for Twitch. It doesn't mean you can't make content. But relying on that as the only thing diminishes the contributions you actually have as a human and as a person to give. And you can dumb that down for little kids. But that's the thing is like, you don't have to be a content creator full time. And in fact, I would almost encourage you not to do that because that sense of greater purpose, that sense of like, what am I here to contribute to and what am I here to deliver? I do think that content creators inspire people. I think they can give somebody a respite from their day-to-day and provide them with entertainment. Movies and video games are great sources of entertainment to help distract us from the stresses of our lives. I firmly believe that. That's why I've played video games my whole life. So I think you can do that. And I think content creators are valuable. They are the most authentic form of marketing nowadays. Gen Z does not trust traditional marketing. They only trust influencers and peer feedback, recommendations, etc. But it comes at a cost. It comes at the instability. It comes at the lack of being able to take time off. It comes at the mental toll of constantly being judged for who you are and what you look like and what you believe in, and everything you say is
the internet
on
is
camera.
brutal.
The internet is brutal. And so like balance that. Get yourself, the best place you can be as a content creator is to get yourself into a place where you could be like, actually, F that. I don't want to do it anymore. And you could walk away and your whole life is unimpacted. So that's the best place to be.
But then how do you balance that? Because I'll be the first person to tell you, like, YouTube is the main source of the media that I personally consume. Sure. The podcasts that I watch, the documentaries that dude, there are so many channels that offer so much value in so many aspects of life. When I started my first job as a data analyst, I was still in school for my finance degree. Yeah. I got the job because my brother basically like knew everybody and he hooked me up. The one question they had for me was like, do you know Microsoft Excel? I was like, yeah, I totally know. I had no idea what I had never heard of Microsoft Excel on a Friday when they asked me. They're like, okay, you can start Monday. That weekend, I remember I was like YouTubing and Googling Microsoft Excel. Like,
I learned to do makeup from YouTube.
It's crazy. Yeah. I learned so many things.
Fish tanks.
How many do it yourself? This is probably
There's like a whole channel of like a dad who's like, it's called My Dad, and he teaches you all the things that you're like, how to fix a sink, how to change your oil, like all
unsung heroes. Not all heroes wear capes.
So good.
Unsung heroes. Yeah. I can't tell you, but so like I understand that this medium or this piece of I could look at YouTube the way I look at a saw, a hammer. Like in a hammer in the hands of a builder can build a house. In the hands of a murderer, it's a deadly weapon.
Right.
That's how I look at YouTube. It's like I can see the value in this while simultaneously being absolutely petrified of how this can be misused.
Yes.
Through all aspects. I mean, so I have a daughter. Mostly social media is what scares me, but like the content that is available on YouTube also scares me. So like, I don't know if you know this, but it's very similar to what you do. There's this woman on YouTube called Miss Rachel.
Okay. Oh yeah, Miss Rachel. It's all her kids' content. People love Miss Rachel.
Yes. I didn't know what the hell this was. And then my wife turns it on. I go, who is this lady? I was like, how is this a thing? And then I look at the views on her videos. Nuts. It's in the tens of millions.
Oh, she's
and I'm like, this girl knows
like
exactly. So I sat there and like I watched it with my daughter for a little bit because I'm like, what is she watching? I want to make sure.
You're a Miss Rachel fan now too.
No, definitely didn't sponsor this podcast. Big fan of Miss Rachel. She does a great job. But what I'm trying to say is like, it used to be, there were a lot of gatekeepers to this kind of, this type of medium, right? Like in order to produce any sort of content on television, you had to go through a producer and a management and all this other stuff.
And now it's open source.
Now anyone can go, which is great because like, I'm a big capitalist and I believe in the free market. And in some ways, YouTube is kind of like the free market. Like if you can record and post, you can have your own YouTube channel.
But there's a lot of responsibility, right? And so like some of the things that I see, the moral responsibility that I see that I felt, maybe because I'm such an emotional person, I think I might have felt it more than other people, than I think maybe most content creators do. But when somebody comes into your channel and asks you really difficult questions about your opinion on a politic or a cultural event that's happening or a war, right? I'm not informed to talk about that. And there is no certification needed to be a content creator. Everybody's got an opinion. But when you are influential and you share that opinion, and when you share an uninformed opinion, you contribute to the degradation of culture.
I agree.
And there is no checks and balances for that. And so to your point, like it can be very, very dangerous. And that stressed me out more than I could, which is why I spent a lot of my time doing charity work. I spent a lot of my gaming career thinking if I'm going to do gaming, and yes, I might be a respite from people's stressful lives. Yes, I might be entertaining for people. Yes, I might be making people laugh and having fun. I wanted to feel like I was doing something good. And so I started raising money every year for Children's Miracle Network, particularly under an umbrella called Extra Life, and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think it's like close to $1 million at this point for sick kids. And so like that was my way of feeling like I was balancing, right? The like, I don't know that I'm informed to talk about a lot of these things. I shouldn't be any, like, should I be somebody's mentor? I don't know, right? I'm just a single mom trying to figure my life out. But I know I can do something good with that. And so I did that for, a while. I continued to do that even after I was like working full time at Twitch. But that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I did was like anytime I had that platform, and I still today, I'm doing a sponsored thing with Extra Life next week because it's still part of something I feel really passionate about, and I can still use my platform to help do that.
Have you ever heard of a gentleman named Douglas Murray? Mm-mm. Essentially, he's like in the world of intelligentsia. Like he's like a big podcaster, speaks about various things. One of the things that he's talking about right now in length is like the Israel-Gaza situation. Yeah. But the reason why I like Douglas Murray so much is because he has a quote that I am enamored with. He says, I am trying to do something unheard of on the internet. Whenever he gets asked a question about things that he's not educated on, he's like, I am going to set a standard about essentially not having an opinion on a matter in which I know nothing about. Yeah. He's like, in the age of in the age of internet where like essentially everyone can just mouth vomit whatever thought they have on any topic, regardless of like how educated or, you know, how, I don't want to say learned they are on the issue, can have an opinion. Because you're right. I can sit here at face value. Maybe I got the 5-minute elevator pitch on some topic. Now I'm supposed to talk about Cliff Notes. Yeah, now I'm supposed to talk about like economic theory. Now I'm supposed to talk about like, oh, the real problem with race today is no, it's just like, dude, listen, I'm just here to play some video games. Like this is a respite. Like if you're looking for, you know, that type of influence, there are channels and there are people much more. Yep.
But not everybody does that, right? Because I think a lot of people don't.
It takes humility. It takes humility.
Well, to admit you don't know, or to say I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to have that conversation to set the boundaries to do all of those things.
One of the things that scares me the most about this is like it's a generation of people that like it used to be that you had to debate these topics because like there was always like an A and B in that conversation, right? So like I would say something to you like I think women shouldn't, I don't know, insert topic here. Right. And you could be like, Ariane, I think you're wrong with that. And we would have a dialogue on it. But now we have like a generation that only knows one-way communication. And like, I know that we have like the comments section and all this other stuff. How easy is it to just like,
tune it? Well, it's the tuning it out.
You can even just turn off comments on videos now.
Or you can just not listen.
Like you really don't need to take in criticism anymore. And that is the part that scares me because I think
it's so easy to like obscure the like I don't want to listen to that because it like have you ever seen the Mythbuster where he's like I reject your reality and substitute my own? Like it is so easy to reject somebody else's opinion and just only go down the algorithm of the things that confirm your bias. It's so easy to do that. Algorithms are meant to feed you content that do that.
I forget the lady's name, but it was one of like the press people for Trump back in 2018, 2019, where like she's on CNN, like they're discussing something and she's like, well, you have your facts, we have alternative facts. And I was like, that is the first time I've ever in my life heard the term alternative facts.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Kellyanne Conway.
Yes, Kellyanne Conway. Yeah. By the way, like a G at her job.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I agree 100%. I think if you want true intelligence, this is just my opinion, you have to have your thought process and your convictions tested. I cannot just say something into the ether, never get chin checked, and this is how I navigate the world.
It's really funny, and we'll get back to my career trajectory story, but like on this, I think I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of months ago, and I was like giving him some life advice on some stuff that happened, and he made a comment that I found was really funny, and he was like, man, you're always right. And I was like, do you know why that is? And he goes, why? And I go, because I don't talk about stuff I don't know about. Like, I am not going to speak with conviction unless I am absolutely certain. Sure. And that's counterbalanced by the fact that I will readily say, I do not know. I did a job interview today for somebody that I'm hiring on my team for a role I got no experience in, right? And I flat out told the person, I have no idea how to tell you how to do your job. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I'm going to expect you to do. Here are the things I need to know. We went through the interview and I go, what didn't I ask you? Like, I will readily and easily say, I don't know. Because then when I do know, it gives people the confidence that like, oh, she wouldn't say that unless she was confident. Like people out here going like, oh, I know everything. No, you don't. No, you don't. And it doesn't matter because when I speak and when I'm certain, I want that to be trusted. And it's only trusted if I'm willing to say, I don't know. You have to be able to do both.
It's humility. It's being able to say you don't know things when you don't know them. That way it validates that respect when you do speak. Because then it's like you said, it's like, well, she wouldn't be saying this unless she felt convicted in her speech.
Right. So I'm not always right. I'm confident and I will tell you what I know. And I'm not going to pretend to know when I don't. And so that like always right thing comes into play that way, which I'm not always, I mean, I would like to believe I'm always right, but I'm not always right. I do the best that I can with the context and the information that I have.
You know what my problem is that I'm finding with my, like, not old age, I'm 31, but as I get older.
Oh God, you can't be old because what does that make me?
I know, I feel old. But I it used to be like a kids would used to be like, well, why? I never had the why phase when I was little. I have the why phase now. I cannot explain to you how many arguments I've gotten with full grown adults where they'll just say something and I'll be like, why do you think that? Not because I think they're right or wrong. As I've aged, like, I think the world is very hard to navigate. I think right and wrong is a manner of perspective. And I think that depending on the groups that you hang out with, depending on who you talk to, right and wrong can be radically different. And that's actually one of the reasons why I started this podcast, was because I was having a lot of political talk with a lot of my friends. And I have people from academia, I have people from the fighting community, I have people from all kind of sorts of like socioeconomic spectrum. And just the things that they would talk about, even from like the intelligent level down to what you would describe as not as intelligent, was just so shallow. It just seemed so like you clearly didn't think this one through, but like you think this for some reason. Yeah. And I was always trying to get to like, okay, you made a statement. Regardless of what that statement is, taxes should be higher, taxes should be lower. We shouldn't do this, we should do that. I don't really care what it is. I want to know why you said the thing you said. And what scared me more than anything was the lack of answer from so many people. Like they didn't really know. All they knew was that they felt, but they didn't know why they felt. And that to me is...
Or they can't communicate why you felt. And Einstein has a great quote that says, if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old,
then you don't really know it.
Right. And I think that like that paired with the fact that a lot of people have made things into very this or that situation. Yes. There are so few things in this world, maybe nothing, that is purely this or that. The whole world in every situation is a grayscale spectrum that falls along and that changes depending on what your point of view is, right? It isn't that easy. You can't say, oh, I'm, a Republican or I'm a Democrat, right? Because there are going to be parts of it that you disagree or don't agree with, right? Yep. There are parts of, political conflicts or human rights issues or things that like are not simply this or that, right or wrong. It's all complex. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we don't explore the complexities. And I think you don't have that on social media because people have it literally. The most recent study that I read said that the average attention span on TikTok,
it's like 4 seconds, 5 seconds,
0.7 seconds. Christ. It is not even an entire second, right? Imagine what you said is 0.7 and somebody's, I'm gonna form an opinion about you because I saw this 0.7 second or 3 seconds or 30 seconds. You can't talk about complex issues in 30, 60, 90 seconds. In a TikTok and an Instagram reel, you just can't do it. And so we try to boil it down because the algorithm, because I want to get my point across. It's just like the world is so much more nuanced than that, and our attention spans and our intellect and our willingness to be humble have all contributed to this. Well, I have an opinion. Well, why? And it's like, I have more than 90 seconds to explain to you why, and now I don't know how to do that. I don't know why, yeah. Right? The average attention span for people who watch podcasts is much, much higher than that because they don't have to have that kind of ADD stimulus of I scrolled through a thing. And so, I do think that there are subsections. When I worked at Twitch, we did a study about the differences behavioral wise of people who watch YouTube and people who watch Twitch, because even back then, this study was probably 10 years ago. It was like a 7-minute versus a 28-minute attention span. And one of the pieces of that study that came out was that people who watched Twitch were 3 times less likely to quit when a video game got really hard than somebody who didn't. Because they watched streamers try and fail and try and fail and try and fail, and failure became normalized. Mm-hmm. Versus hey guys, I'm on YouTube, I'm gonna do the thing, I'm gonna beat the boss is dead. And you're like, well, if I didn't beat it in 30 seconds, I must be shit and I'm not gonna play the game anymore. And so that stuff changes your psychological way that you perceive how you should go about life. And if you think that you should go about life in 7 seconds or 30-second clips, we are not doing, what is speed dating like right now? Can you imagine TikTok speed? I don't want you to think about it.
Not even speed dating. I don't even want to think about dating right now. I coach high school wrestling.
You have that luxury. I don't.
I know. I coach high school wrestling, and one of the loves I have about that is just listening to the kids when they're talking about because I remember what it was like when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And to hear them talk about how they're navigating through life. I very rarely have comments, right?
Well, I have a 15-year-old, so I'm getting it too. You know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And all I think to myself is there's a part of me that's like, you guys are so much more well-equipped than I was at your age to handle these issues, while I simultaneously also tackle the fact that they have so many more issues than we had.
And they will, in 10 years, they will have so many more.
I have, because I want to get back to your life and Twitch, but I do have I used to worry about the future. I really did. Because I thought to myself, like, I looked to my left.
These kids are so much more savvy than we are.
I have faith in the Zoomers.
I do.
I really do.
I do.
These kids are, granted, I have a small sample size, and this is very anecdotal evidence, and I also come from the sport of wrestling, so, like, I'm going to be honest with you, to do wrestling, you have to be mentally strong.
Oh, yeah.
And these kids are top notch.
Their fortitude is a lot higher.
But what I am saying is, like, I could pick out any of the kids on that wrestling team, and I could tell you, like, they're going to be fine. I don't know what it is that they're going to do. They could be a teacher, they could be a hairdresser, they could be whatever it is. They're going to be fine.
They are overachievers and cannot sit still to a fault. They're always pushing. And I work with a lot of like people that are on that cusp of like Gen Z and right, especially in things like social media influencer. They are just constantly like, they're not good with stagnation.
Yeah.
So they're always pushing forward. And I think part of that is that like scroll culture, but they just like want to progress constantly.
Well, think about it. You remember what it was like before internet. So do I. They don't know what that's like. Yeah. Like when these kids were growing up, like Facebook was the norm, right? Like everyone had a Facebook. And now it's like they only know a world of social media. They only know a world of tablets and cell phones. And with that comes a lot of bad.
When was the last time like a younger person just like sat out and looked at the car window for like 35 minutes? Like it's tranquil as hell.
You want to hear?
You should do it.
You want to hear a funny
everyone
story?
Younger out there, just like look out the window for 30 minutes.
I had a floppy disk.
Yeah.
Like it was like a 5 megabyte floppy disk. And I was like, oh my God. And I had it in my car. And I had to we had to drive to some tournament or whatever. So like one of the kids was in the car with me and he's like, oh, that's cool. You 3D printed the save sign. And I was like, the save sign? Like, what are you talking about? The save. He doesn't know what a floppy disk is. He thought that I 3D printed the save. I had to explain to him. I'm like, no. You know the save icon comes from a floppy disk. Like that came before the save icon. And like I was like blowing his mind. I was like, you thought I 3D printed this? Ben Lawler and the Tom James family will ensure that whether you're purchasing your first custom fit suit or your 50th, the process is unrivaled. With the experience and quality of the Tom James name, allow Ben Lawler to help shape the vision that is your professional brand with a suit that speaks to the conviction in their craft. With fabric sourced here in the US, you'll know quality and craftsmanship are top of class. Like a sculptor examines wet clay before creating a masterpiece, Ben Lawler will walk you through the process of selection, measuring, and stitching to ensure your finished product is a work of art. Putting your trust in Ben is a guarantee that your brand will elevate to the next level. And always remember, you don't get a second chance at a first impression.
You've seen the thing where they ask like moms my age and then they ask their kids to like do a hand signal for like answering the phone, and you do like this and the kids do this.
Oh no.
And they're like, take a picture and we do this and they do this.
Oh no.
Like it's like roll a window down and we're like do this and they just hit a button. Like they don't understand. Like there's another series where like people will put a rotary phone down in front of the kids and being like dial a number and they're like none of them have any idea how to use a rotary phone, which is not to make fun of them. They're not stupid. No, it's just technology has advanced so much that even the very small things that we knew do you remember like how you knew where you could walk in your house where the cord ran on your phone and you were like, I can barely get into my room and I can tell my friend about the cute boy I saw at the playground, right? Because I knew I could get like 4 steps into my bedroom with the cordless phone, you know? When we got the long cord, we were all like, yeah, right? And now like people don't know, right? So it's just, we just grew up in very different eras and they do have an impact on your resiliency, the things that you do, the subconscious way that you go about life. And that stressed me out. I knew that from the second that I went into content creation, this like almost a mobilizing weight of responsibility that like, sure, I can play Minecraft and have fun. But similarly, it was just like, what am I going to do? How am I going to contribute to all of that? So I got into it. I did it for a month. My channel blew up. I was helping and calling in all of those favors with YouTubers. And like a couple of months before that, I had traveled down for an event for Extra Life and had met someone who was working at Twitch. And like the funniest part about it is you guys are like seeing me now and I'm like in this. Ariane's seeing me like I'm usually in like jeans and a hoodie and like whatever. This is not my typical attire.
She got dressed up for this.
I got dressed up for this. I did. But when I was working my IT job at that point, I mean, I got off this like tram from the airport and I was like in heels and like the whole thing. And they were like, who is this? Like, what is she? You know? And so I think I like had this very first impression, but I was also pretty well spoken. I was raising money. I knew a lot about the gaming industry, and I had met somebody who was working at Twitch at the time and gotten to know him over that weekend. He knew that I was doing Minecraft, and as I was like entering into, you know, that next phase, I quit my IT job. I was doing Minecraft full time, content creation. He called me and said, "Hey, how would you feel about leaving your IT job and coming to work for us part time?" And I was like, well, I already left the IT job. And he said, well, would you want to come work for us part-time? We'll pay you what you were making. So $30,000 a year. They were going to pay me $30,000 to work part-time. And I was like, and you're going to fly me to conventions? Sold. Mom, I made it. Like, life will never get better than this. And so, because I can do my YouTube stuff and I can work part-time and I have some stability, I can like counterbalance the fact that I wasn't making a ton of ad revenue. Like, oh my God, the world has like opened up for me. And the whole reason why he wanted me to go work for him was because at the time, Twitch was really like esports focused. So a lot of League of Legends, Call of Duty, Dota, competitive gaming, that type of stuff. And Minecraft was this monolith on YouTube generating millions and millions of hours watched, and no one was doing it on Twitch. I mean, not no one, but it was a blip. And they were like, we don't understand why those Minecrafters aren't coming over to Twitch. So will you work for us and figure out what the heck is going on, and then try to go convince all your friends. They were basically paying for my Rolodex. They were like, come pay all of your friends to like come over to Twitch. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did that. I started doing a bunch of reviews. I did a lot of like...
What year was this when you
That would have been 2014.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
this is like, what, 3 years into the industry, quote unquote? Like, when did you start doing YouTube? What
2012.
year? 2012. So, okay,
yeah.
So roughly 2 years.
Yeah, roughly 2 years, about a year and a half. And so, because it was February of 2014, so it had just been like a year.
You networked rather quickly, though.
Yeah, I did. But again, like, there wasn't a lot of, like, everyone knew everyone back at the time. It was the internet was
the wild, wild west of it.
Yeah. And so I had a bunch of conversations with people who were doing Minecraft on Twitch, and I was like, hey, you know, YouTube is very seasonal, where like everyone peaks in the same months, everybody drops in the same months. Like, it's outside of like random outliers. Everybody experiences the same kind of rises and falls because it's cyclical based on when kids are in school, based on when they're not in school, when is summer vacation, when our sponsors and ad revs, like, because it's the Super Bowl, because it's holiday shopping season, like, you can tell it's very predictable and rhythmic. Everybody knows that CPMs are trash in January. They go up during the Super Bowl. Like, everybody knows that. But Twitch was not that way. I was looking at different creators and I was like, you're peaking over here and you're peaking over here. Like, what is happening? And so I went and interviewed them and said, like, hey, what happened in that month? What happened in this month? What changed between these things? And I started figuring out what was going on. And one of the things was that there was this stigma back then of like, if you're live when I'm live, you're stealing my audience. Like, that's how small the internet was. Back then was like, if I knew you and you were live at the same time as me, like, we're going to fight.
We're competing.
And now, like, everybody is like, everyone's got to go live because someone's always live. And so I actually was able to combat their perceptions by figuring out that the months that they were all the highest in CCU and subscription revenue was the months that they were collaborating with each other.
What is CCU?
Concurrent users, or like CCV, concurrent viewership.
And that's basically like...
how many average watchers they have at the time. So their peak viewers were highest when they were actually live intentionally and collaborating with people, which counteracted was 180 what their belief was.
Real quick though, when you first got brought into Twitch, it was to kind of migrate people away from YouTube onto Twitch.
No, they didn't want to migrate them away because they knew that it was too lucrative for those people that were on YouTube. But what we were doing, and the way that I was explaining it to YouTubers, is like, hey, you're gonna go spend 4 hours mining to go do this segment that you're gonna spend 4 hours prepping for this thing that's gonna be a 15-minute video. Why are you not monetizing the 4 hours of content that you can't record?
Yeah,
right.
The YouTube video anyway.
Monetize the stuff that you're not monetizing. Why wouldn't you do that to build community and get a separate audience? And, you know, why put all your eggs in a YouTube basket, which ended up being really smart because when the adpocalypse happened, all of the YouTubers who all of a sudden weren't making money because all the ad revs pull out, they were like, I got a Twitch channel.
I wasn't big on YouTube, but I remember when that happened because at the time I was like 19, 20 years old, and I was consuming a lot of like World of Warcraft content because that's the game I played.
Yeah.
And I remember when the adpocalypse happened, I mean, like Total Biscuit and like Jesse Cox and all these guys like made videos basically saying like, this is insane. Like our revenue is getting cut between like 50 and 70%.
I mean, people's livelihoods were lost in that segment of time.
And what was the I don't mean to go down memory lane here, but what was the purpose of adpocalypse? Essentially what happened was YouTube was like, hey, we are not generating enough revenue?
No. So adpocalypse happened because the traditional media, so like your Wall Street Journals, your New York Times, and not that they were responsible, but like those kind of traditional ad rev mediums started losing their ad revenue because people weren't advertising on traditional mediums, and instead they wanted to go to YouTube, where like younger audiences, there were higher conversion rates, there were click-throughs, there were like all kinds of things that were there. And I don't remember exactly what the article was, but something happened about safety on YouTube, and there were like types of videos that weren't safe, and there were all these like commentary and like, oh, as sponsors, do you really want to risk your ad being run in front of this content? And so these journalism media outlets started running these like basically like smear campaigns on YouTube and scared a bunch of advertisers into saying, we don't want to be part of that. Until YouTube, you fix that stuff, I don't want to be part of any of that. So we're pulling all of our ad dollars out, and we're going to go back to the traditional media over here. And so it wasn't a YouTube. I mean, YouTube had some safety things that they needed to do, and they needed to put some filtering and some better restrictions in place. They ended up doing the whole COPPA thing, which is the Child Protection Act, and doing a bunch of stuff. But the adpocalypse was essentially all the advertisers pulling out because they were too worried about their content appearing in front of kind of extremist content that they didn't want to be part of. Yeah,
you got like a L'Oreal commercial on.
Correct. And so then they didn't want to do that. And so it was actually the advertisers pulling out, which then negatively impacted all the creators.
I'm glad you said that, because up until now, I just assumed that it was like maybe YouTube was running in the red, which is actually par for the course for some of these streaming
YouTube
sites.
ran in the red for a decade.
Yeah,
before it was
but they
profitable.
had Alphabet own them, and it's
right.
What's the number one search engine in the world?
Right.
Google. What's number two? YouTube.
Yeah.
Who owns both?
Well, right. So it wasn't any of that. No, it wasn't like necessarily YouTube's fault. It was the advertisers that were pulling out until they could feel secure enough to then put their investment dollars back.
Well, I mean,
YouTube.
now they're making billions of dollars a year in revenue.
Profitable,
yeah,
right?
It's absolutely insane.
And creators are benefiting from that.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the thing. And so what I was trying to do at the time was not to pull them away from what they were doing, but to incentivize them to add basically another tool into their content creator toolbox, is the way that we framed it, of like monetize the not monetizable. Connect with your audiences. This is a great way to like hawk your merchandise, and instead of having 15 seconds, of which 30 seconds of that you'll lose attention span, it's way higher over here. It's an older demographic. You can do different things. You can diversify your content. Isn't it much more casual over here, where you can like sometimes play not Minecraft, right? And so the goal was just to start to build what we were calling sandbox content. So Minecraft, indie games, that type of stuff. And so they hired me to figure out why it wasn't happening and to start to shift the perception of what that was. And like, I didn't have any training in that. I like just went and figured it out, right? I was like, nobody came in and was like, and here's exactly how you do that. Here's how you build a live stream platform. I didn't know. We were a startup back then, right? I was employee number 120 at Twitch, right? Like 120 people.
When did Amazon buy Twitch?
Like 7 months after I joined. It was like the October of that year.
Because I remember like it wasn't immediate. Like
it was like 6 or 7. I think it was like October of that year.
And that actually like ballooned you guys. I mean, it gave you all the funding you would ever need to do all the things that you would want to do. It gave us a lot of stuff,
and to their credit, they really didn't come in and touch our stuff too much. And so I did that. In the 3 months that I was there for under contract, I managed to significantly grow the portfolio, significantly increase collaboration, increase the hours watched, increased the number of creators that were onboarding, increased the concurrent viewership, increased the placement that it had in the directory. And I don't say that like I did all that by myself. Like it wasn't. It was just you had opportunity back then to do it. And so after I'd done that, they were like, hey, like you seem like you know what you're doing. Do you want to work full time? And I was like, am I going to get health insurance? And they were like, yes. And I was like, sold. So I doubled my pay, and I was like, $60,000 a year. I'm done. Mom. Thank God I made it, I was like, you guys don't have to pay my bills.
How old are you at this time? 28, 29?
Yeah, I was like 28, 29.
Dude, $60,000 back then too. It was like 10 years ago. $60,000 was like...
Dude, I was...
$60,000 is like $90,000 now.
And I thought I was like good at 30, and then I had 60, and I was like, I will never want for anything ever again. Like, this is perfect. And I'm a simple girl, and like I can live off, a little bit, a pretty honest lifestyle. So, I was like super excited about that, and they were like, we're going to have you work full time. And at that point, around that time, they said, actually, we're going to just make you a community manager. Because what I had started to do was, my job was like Minecraft. My first job was partnerships, Minecraft. I was a partnerships account manager specifically for Minecraft creators. And what we would do is we would be at conventions. Again, we were a startup. People did not know what Twitch was. And, creators would tweet like, come meet me in the Twitch booth. And I would like look around and go, why don't we put like a step and repeat behind us, do a schedule of meet and greets to drive traffic consistently, increase our branding on social media. And they were like, well, we don't know how to schedule meet and greets. And I was like, well, how hard can it be? I'll figure it out. And so I just started doing that with a lot of stuff.
And this is why I find you fascinating. It's actually not because of like the industry that you're in, Aaron. It's the fact that you took something that like, I don't want to say hadn't been, like, it's not like you invented it, quote unquote, right? But you took something that wasn't really a paved road. Like at best, it was like a well-beaten road. Like maybe some people walked in front of you before you, but
there might have been a path, but it wasn't paved.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the reason I bring that up is because like, in my opinion, that is the ultimate value to any company, is not the ability to like, can you do a job? Of course, like anyone can do a job. If I lay out,
teach anybody to do
if
anything.
I tell you step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you don't have to have the I don't want to say like the biggest skill set in order to execute something that I'm showing you how to do.
Yeah.
But the real value in individuals, and I think like what really kind of progresses a business is like, I have a problem. I don't know how to fix problem. But if you do, that'd be like an immense amount of value to me, generate immense amount of revenue for me, and I'm willing to kick you back some of that revenue.
But not only I have a problem, somebody who can go, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Right? To identify the like, you have a problem.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And for me, like, it wasn't because I was like the world's greatest marketer. Like I didn't go to school for that. I knew what creators wanted because I was one. Yeah. And I was like, as a creator, I would want a company to give me a place to have a meet and greet so I could tell my community, come meet me. Like that would be a service to me. I would like the company if they did that. So a lot of it was just like, if you guys have ever watched the movie Robots, one of the themes in Robots is see a need, fill a need. I was seeing a need and I was problem solving how to do that in a way that was continuously building this relationship between Twitch and creators, solve this problem for them. At one point they said, what can we do? And I go, well, I can tell you right now, I'm the person who has to figure out how to book a place for dinner, get all the creators in one place, spend an evening of, we'll rent a bowling alley and whatever. And then I got to go collect $20 from everybody because it comes out of my pocket and I'm broke as a joke as a single mom. Just pay for the bowling alley, throw them some t-shirts, and they were like, okay, that's literally how Twitch Partner Party started. Now this like big thing that they have where like, T-Pain shows up and they like all these things like partner VIP lounges. It started because I was like, I'm tired of paying for the bowling alley for Minecraft people. Twitch, if you have $500 and throw them some t-shirts with their names on the back, partner jerseys for a long time came out of those t-shirts. Like I can tell you like cultural things that people care about on Twitch came from early days of like me solving problems of like, I want a t-shirt with my name on it. I want a place for a meet and greet. So having that amount of empathy for what creators were going through inherently made me better at my job. And so I just did that. And I kept evolving my career because we were a startup, because all those things were happening. And I kept saying, here is a problem. Here's, a thing we want to do. I think for me, the thing that I talk still about this all the time, it might be like one of the things I'm most proud of ever doing. I was a community manager at the time. I was running the community marketing team. We moved from the partnership side to the marketing side, which allowed me to get some more marketing experience. And legal hit me up one day and they were like, hey, we just need you to know there's like 7 groups, 7 cities around the world, and they're throwing these Twitch parties. Did you know about this? And I was like, I kind of knew that they were doing it, Sometimes we'll throw them swag or whatever. And they were like, well, we got to stop that. It's a legal problem. They're using Twitch's branding and they're going out and getting sponsors. It's like a huge issue. When people want a refund, they're asking us for refunds because it's not clear that we're not running it. So we just want to let you know that we're going to go out and send a bunch of cease and desists to these people. And I was like,
come again?
You what now?
Yeah.
Because these people are in Vancouver, Canada. These people are in Australia. These people are in places where we spend zero marketing dollars.
And you're basically getting that marketing for free.
And they're spending their own time, energy, and money in doing this. And you want to shut them down? YouTube doesn't have that. Like, all these other competitors don't have that. No. Like, we can't do it. And I was like, listen, I am confident enough that I can solve any problem. I used to say I can solve any problem, it's not death or taxes, and then somebody that I worked with passed away. Unfortunately, I was like, gotta stop saying that, So now I just say everything's a solvable problem. But I was like, I can solve any problem. So I want you to run me down all of your legal concerns about why this is bad. And I promise you I can build a program where where not only can we prevent those things from happening, but I bet I can get more people to do this. I bet we can get more people to do Twitch events in cities where we aren't at, so we don't have to spend marketing dollars to do that.
How combative was that role? Because it sounds like you were a lot of times steering initiatives, but also kind of like damage control almost.
Yeah. And it wasn't, because I had a lot of trust. I had built up a lot of trust with people in the organization, again, that I wasn't going to fight about things that we shouldn't fight about, that my job was to be the community advocate of like, hey, people are going to be really upset about this change. Here's how we can communicate it. People are confused about this. We need to go out and educate people on whatever. And so we did. We built the community meetups program. You know Kayla.
Yeah.
She ran the St. Louis one. And we were able to...
That was actually the first time you and I went out, because we went out to the St. Louis, I believe it was in Soulard. It was like a St. Louis Twitch thing. And it was like when Chris was trying to talk me into doing Twitch. And I was like, I don't know, man. He's like, just come out, meet some people, you'll never know. And it was actually that event that made me go, oh, this is kind of cool. It was just a bunch of nerds nerding out, and I felt right at home.
And so we were able to address all of the legal concerns that they had and build this program that now is in like 7 different countries in 35 cities around the world. And that program, the amount of money it costs to run that program is less than it costs them to run an entire party at E3. Well, now defunct E3, but like they would throw these like parties.
Defund E3?
No, defunct. Like
defunct
E3 is gone.
Yeah, basically.
But the big parties that they used to do for like those events, that program for all of those users that has impressions of hundreds of thousands of people, that reaches millions of people in impressions, costs less than a singular event that touches 2,000 people. Because we figured it out. And so it's like, and then once I did that for any number of things, like Creator Camp we built. Like there's a lot of things that we were able to build that still exist. The Ambassador Program at Twitch, I built, it still exists. Creator Camp, I built, still exists. Like the Community Meetups Program still exists. Like all of those things still exist.
So not to kind of skip around here, but you no longer work at Twitch.
I no longer work at Twitch.
Do you still like have contacts there? Relationships still good?
Yeah.
I mean, from what you're saying, you sound like very proud of like the work that you did there.
I'm super proud.
So, I mean, when you look back on that time of your life, there's a lot of growth, like both individually, you as a person, and then career-wise.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think that you handled very well was like this mixture of, because you were also still streaming while you were doing all this. So like you're still having that creative outlet where you are the individual Aureylian on Twitch, and then simultaneously you're working at Twitch.
I was Aaron at Twitch.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, how was that? That's got to be difficult, because it's melding of two different worlds, in my opinion. But I will say this, from outsiders' perspective, the YouTubers and the Twitch streamers that I think do it best have basically created like a business of their brand. Like an Asmongold, a PewDiePie, a whoever, the brand is that individual. The brand is themselves. So it's almost like if you can bridge that gap between the not so fun corporate world and the sought after creative side of the influencer / content creator world, I feel like that is where the stars align. I
think for me, and I knew I was at a point where like, for many years, I was actually making more money as a content creator than I was at Twitch. Like even that like $60K at Twitch was not what I was making as a content creator, because once I monetized and once I started doing stuff, I mean, I would get a brand deal that was $20,000 for one brand deal, and it was like done, right? So like, I was like, I'm gonna put my emotional and time investment into whatever is paying me more. Then when we got acquired by Amazon and those stocks started hitting, I was like, well, I know where my bread is buttered, and I'm going to go there. But I was still doing both.
Did they give you options when they bought? My girl.
We'll talk finances at the end, but I like. Let me like share a piece of wisdom to anybody I know. I'm going to tell you this right now, young people. Do not do what I did. When you get stock options as a person, you don't have to sell them.
No.
And I sold them.
All of them?
A lot of them when they were worth $500 a share, and they ended up getting at $3,500 before they split. So your girl did not know a lot about
chart.
stocks.
What percentage did you sell at?
More than I want to admit out loud publicly, because nobody told me. So just so you know, anybody out there, if you get RSUs as part of your business, talk to a finance person before you just assume that you're supposed to sell them, because I didn't know that. And I did smart things. I paid off my student loans. I paid off my car. I bought a home. Like I did smart things with them. I didn't like go blow it on stuff. But I would be retired right now if I had not sold them. That's a fact. Well, so anyway, but yeah, so as soon as I started making more money at Twitch, I was like, oh, okay, like now the content thing is a hobby again. But the problem is that as I took on more responsibility at work, right? As I became the head of community creator and influencer marketing, I was at Amazon's called an L7. It was like almost like the VP level, senior director VP level at Amazon. I had a lot of responsibility. I had a lot of things that were on my plate, but I was also the forward-facing community member. The community expected me to be using the product, to be out there doing those things, to be doing the press interviews, to be going and talking to creators, to be showing it at all of these things. I then got into a relationship with a Twitch streamer, right? Like that was my partner. All of my friends were Twitch streamers. My best friends still today all stream on Twitch, right? They're all content creators. Imagine 90% of your day, outside of being a parent, being a mom, my entire life circulated around my job, whether it was my friends, my partner, my actual work day, my hobby streaming, like it became all encompassing. And so when the community was upset about a decision, particularly decisions that I didn't agree with, it just felt like my entire world was crumbling. And I got news for people who spend a lot of time on the internet. If the internet shut down tomorrow, you would be fine. But it doesn't feel that way because it feels like your whole world is in zeros and ones. And I had a complete mental breakdown and I like couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore.
While I understand the sentiment, I actually don't agree with that. If the internet shut down tomorrow, you would feel
I mean, you would literally, you would like our financing systems would shut down. That's not what I mean. What I mean is like,
talking about the media.
I'm talking about like your media. I'm talking about your value as a human being, who you are as a person. Like I had to spend so much time being like, I'm not just Erin Twitch person. I am like somebody's daughter. I'm somebody's mom. I am good at like baking things and building things with my hand and gardening, and like I have to go outside and touch grass to remember that like people yelling at me on the internet is not the totality of who I am as a human being and does not establish my worth as a person. And that was so hard for me to do when 95% of my life, literally anything that wasn't me being a mom, circulated around people's opinions of Twitch.
You sound like a lot of successful men that I know where they're essentially like not overwhelmed. They're bathed in the waters of whatever it is industry that they work in.
Yeah.
The way you talk about Twitch, the way that you talk about like how it kind of encompassed your life, like your immediate friends they're also working at the same place you are, more or less, whether they're streamers or whether they're actually working at corporate Twitch.
Their lives circulate around
and
it.
their friends and that circle. And basically like everyone's kind of congregating together all because you guys have like interests and hobbies. It just so happens that your like interests and hobbies are also the way you guys generate revenue for yourselves.
And there was no balance. There was no balance
that cannot
in
be
my
healthy
life.
for anyone involved in that.
And it wasn't. And, you know, I got to this moment where I was like, but this is what I'm good at. I know everything, right? I became the biggest, if not the biggest, one of the biggest fish in the pond, right? Because I was, at that point, when I left Twitch, I think there were only like 7 people who had been at Twitch longer than I had left. Because again, I was at point number 120. There weren't that many of them, right? And so I knew all the historical knowledge. I was the person that was in charge of doing all of these things. And I worked with a lot of really talented people. Like the people that are still at Twitch are amazing, incredible people. And I have every faith in the platform of where it is. But my ability personally to like disconnect who I was as a person. And so, you know, I had all this burnout. I had this like feeling of like, what am I going to do? And how what does my career look like? I literally was like, I will die here. They will bury me in a purple casket. Like I will like breathe and die. And that's what started scaring me. And so I got to this moment where, you know, I was starting to think for the first time in my life, I kind of got out of the like solving all the problems and just move on from one problem to the next to like really thinking about, okay, what's the long-term vision for the next 10 years of what I want to do at Twitch? And what can I contribute to? And what do I think my skill set and value can be in the organization? And an opportunity came up for an executive level position that I felt incredibly qualified for, doing some of the work that I had done before, the platforms that I had built.
At Twitch. So internal mobility.
Internal, yep. And without getting into the specifics, it ended up being a very subpar experience. And they essentially said, one particular leader said, I don't think you're capable of doing it. And
you mean the interview process was a subpar experience?
They actually didn't even let me interview. They had me apply, and I made a resume for the first time ever, because when they hired me originally, I didn't even have a resume.
Right. And then you just constantly got promotions and stuff, so you never really had to apply for any of these positions.
Right, because they just were rewarding me for my work.
Hey,
and this was the first time that I kind of like stepped out of my comfort zone to say like, I'm going to go for something. And I was encouraged to apply. I applied, And then I got kicked around for a while, and then finally like messaged HR, and I was like, look, I can read through, the lines of what's going on. They don't want to hire me for the job, but I do feel like you should have owed me. Why did you have me apply and then not even let me interview when like my work clearly speaks for itself? That's a really frustrating experience as an employee. And I got into a call very quickly thereafter with one of the leaders, and they essentially told me, I don't think you can do it. And I was like, but
what does that mean? You're not smart enough? You don't have a skill set?
The feedback that I got was that they didn't think that I was capable of leading a large team. And I said, but like my craft competence? And he's like, no, I just don't think that you can lead a team. And I was like, but how do you know that? You didn't even interview me. You haven't talked to any of my direct reports. I have some of the highest sentiment reports from my team. It's not like you manage 200 people. It scales. You manage 5 people who manage 5 people who manage 5. You know what I'm saying? And that was all the feedback that I got. And they're like, well, we already hired somebody, so it's over. And I just remember feeling so...
defeated.
Not defeated, but I remember thinking like, if my work hasn't spoken enough for itself now, I've now hit the peak of my game here. Like I'm capped now. Where else do I go from here? If you just told me that you don't think that I'm capable for the next step, what am I going to do?
Did they not give you, so you don't have to say anything you don't want to say.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to pry any information.
Yeah.
In this process, did they not tell you like, if you do X, then maybe Y? Or was it just like, you're not fit for this role, thank you, goodbye?
And
there was no constructive...
And we've already hired someone to do it.
So this was all just a waste of everybody's time.
It was a waste of everybody's time. And I just remember feeling like so disrespected in that situation, which was really disheartening for a company that I knew didn't disrespect me. Like I think that's one bad leader making an impact that then impacted an entire organization. So here's what happened. I was really upset, and I was burned out because I was overwhelmed with all the work that was going on. And I was just like, oh my God, like sometimes you just like throw your hands up and you're like, universe, throw me a sign, right? Literally 2 days later, I got an email from a guy that I'd worked with in the industry for a really long time. And he goes, hey, look, I know you're probably not looking at leaving Twitch. This recruiter's got a job you really need to talk to about. And I had never spoken to a recruiter. I used to just delete their emails and never even humored them, never even interviewed, never even thought about it. Well, I got a resume now, right? Like I got a resume. I have, the things now. You've told me that you don't think I'm capable of the job. And I said, well, all right, fine. So I talked to the recruiter, and the job that they were offering me was this almost same level as the one that this company had just told me that they didn't. The Twitch told me they didn't think I was capable of doing.
In terms of equivalency, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I got in to talk to the recruiter, and was really excited about the work that she had, and it ended up being the job at Riot. And I'd never worked on the game publishing side, and I went through a lot of like imposter syndrome stuff. Like, can I even be good at that job? Am I only good at my job because I know so much about Twitch? Like, am I actually a good marketer? Am I actually a good leader? Am I actually a good community person? And I'd won community manager of the year for the entire gaming industry like the year before. And it's like, but that imposter syndrome kind of like settles in,
Do you think the way that upward mobility within Twitch kind of halted also gave you a little bit of insecurity?
Definitely being told that somebody just flat out doesn't think you're capable, like obviously shakes me to my core as somebody who, again, has struggled with imposter syndrome before. Like that was all of the worst kinds of validation that I didn't want. But I was like, maybe this is the sign that I needed, that like I've now been at Twitch for 7.5 years. Like it might be time to move on. And I had asked a mentor of mine who did not work at Twitch, how do you know when to leave your job? And because I was talking to this recruiter and I was going through the process, and he said, Erin, people leave jobs for 2 reasons. They leave jobs because they're running away from a bad situation that makes them unhappy, or they walk away from a job because they're walking towards something better. And the only way to ensure that you don't end up in the first position is to always be talking to recruiters, to making sure that you're moving towards the next best thing. And I was like, that makes sense.
If you would have gotten that job,
I would have stayed, 100%. Would never have entertained that recruiter.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad.
The person that they did hire for that role, was it internal? Was it someone external?
No, external. It was somebody external. And so...
Is that person, to your knowledge, still working there?
No. And so which is not to say that like they were wrong. I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but...
No, I'm just curious.
In
hindsight's always 20/20.
In hindsight's always 20/20. And so here's what I realized actually about where my dissatisfaction was coming from in the interview process. When I was interviewing for the job at Riot, they were like, we don't know what this job looks like. We actually do not know what we need. We have a bunch of questions. We have a bunch of problems that need solving. And I was like, oh my God, the reason why I'm so unhappy is because Twitch was in a wash, rinse, repeat, maybe slight iteration. And the thing that I am most passionate about doing is taking the thing that says, you can't do that, right? We did a project one time at Twitch, and I was like, it was like this audacious, like crazy idea. And my boss had said, if you can get that done, I'll throw you a parade. I got it done. I love being able to be the person that's like, nobody's ever done that before. Watch me. I love that. Like, I find such an immense amount of like personal satisfaction from doing that. And thinking about going into a company the size of Riot with the establishment and the reach that they do, and being able to build something from scratch is such a unique and rare jewel of an opportunity that I was like, I am so thrilled. I'm so excited about the opportunity of having no roadmap. I have no paved road in front of me. I've got to go do it. That work is hard. I like hard work. I like knowing that I'm leaving a legacy behind, right? I like looking back and being like, I did that. I like looking back and being like, Creator Camp, that's mine. Ambassadors, that's mine. Like, I find a lot of value and reward from that. And I wasn't able to do that anymore. And so it happened to just be that the universe opened up this opportunity for me. And I am happier in my job now than I've ever been.
I think that was the longest winded, I outgrew the position.
Probably. I've never thought about it that way, but like...
It's like, it was great on the come up, right? Because you're also getting the promotions that are like in line.
And I was being rewarded. I was being rewarded.
You also ran into a problem that like the vast majority of people will not run into, and that's like the cap of their current role. And like, usually there's like a promotion at it. So like, take any sort of like, I don't know, Centene or whatever company, right? It's like you have an engineer 1, and then you get to a certain level, and then once you cap out, we have that
in our roles at Riot.
You get an engineer 2. But the problem is, you get to that point now, you're at like the upper echelon. You're talking about the executive levels. I mean, you're a step down from the C-suite, right? Yeah. So it's like, how much more can you grow? And sometimes you do have to go horizontal to go vertical, and that sounds like what you learned.
And I think for me, like what I've learned now is that the title actually is not the thing that's important to me.
It's the skill set.
At this point, you know, I'm very fortunate in the position that I have, the trust that I've built with my team internally. I like the people that I work with. I have a great rapport with those people. If they told me tomorrow, Aaron, we would love for you to just be like an IC, independent person. You have no team. You don't manage anybody, but we want to just send you around and solve really complex problems in the business. I'd be like, cool. I think for me, like I'm at a point now where I feel like I've worked hard to prove myself. And so what I'm doing now is doing things that have an impact that stimulate my intellectual curiosity enough that I feel like I'm generating a value. Mm-hmm. And right now, I lead a large team. I provide value in mentoring the next generation of people. I found a lot of, again, personal satisfaction in being able to say, I've now redefined what good community management looks like, at Riot or in other places. I've worked with really talented people to make sure that their visions get to come to life. It's not on me. I work with a lot of really smart people who know our games and our players forward and backwards. And I get to help make sure that their stuff comes to life and help open the pathway for them. And so that's really rewarding for me. But it was a long trajectory. And I say that, it's been 10 years. Like the fact that I was a waitress who had no money in her bank account, who was living paycheck to paycheck 11 years ago, to now being where I am now, like that's audacious. And that's not normal, but it was because I was an emerging tech. I don't think that, you couldn't probably replicate that again today.
I think you were prepared for the opportunities that presented themselves.
That was your like, what's the luck, what's the whatever.
I think you're lucky.
I think I could have a lot of YouTubers at the time when I took that job at Twitch, when they were like, come work for us part-time, I distinctly remember, I will remember this forever. I remember 2 of the people that I knew getting mad at me and saying, why would you go work for someone else when you can be your own boss? And I was like, 1, because a girl needs money. 2, I'm a mom. Like, I have to have security for my child. It's not just about me. If I can't afford my rent, she's out. And so, like, I remember having moments in time where it's like, should I invest more in Twitch or should I invest more in my content creation? And which one do I think is going to pay off more? And I think being able to not do the selfish thing, but do the thing that I actually thought for my ego might not have been. I could have probably tried to be one of the most popular YouTubers in the world and could have gone there if maybe, but I didn't think I was going to be a LeBron James. I thought I was going to, my talents were better suited on the side of the court than they were on the court. And so I chose that path when a lot of people were like, yeah, but you could, if I was a streamer right now, I would not be making the money that I make now. And, it was about fulfilling my intellectual curiosity, feeling like I was doing something better, and that sense of security and forward progression. And I don't think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people would have taken the easy way out, which is like, I want to be my own boss.
I did not realize until we had this conversation, because I've actually never talked to you about like this in depth about your like employment history and then before Twitch and all this other stuff. I didn't realize how similar our stories really are, because the way you describe streaming, content creation, and then moving on to this Twitch chapter of your life where you're starting to work more in the corporate field and then ultimately landing in Riot, it is very similar to how I handled fighting.
Yeah.
I waited to go pro until after I graduated school, because I knew myself. I was like, if I go pro and I start making money fighting, I'm going to quit school. And I knew young Ariana at 23, I was just like, I need to be on this trajectory.
Yeah.
And I remember watching other fighters like come and go, and it scared the hell out of me, because I see these guys, they spend all their youth trying to like land this dream, and some of them it works out, but for the vast majority, it does not. And I always told myself that like, no matter what, I could always rely on my brain. No matter what, if the stars aren't aligned for me in this aspect of my life, I have my intelligence, I have my work ethic, I have my professional life. And I was handling both fighting and my career at the same time.
In balance.
And then when I took a step back from fighting and really pursued my professional career, Aaron, it has changed the trajectory of just not just my life, my daughter's life and their kids' life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would not be, the best thing that's ever happened to me is Bruna. Because in a lot of ways, my wife is a hyper successful woman.
Yeah.
She's a high earner. And I'm a firm believer, for right or wrong, that the man needs to make more in the relationship, because the woman has to respect the man. Like, if you can't respect someone, you can't love them. Right? So like, it's not necessarily that I have to make like a lot more than her. If she makes 50,
but you want to know that you're bringing to the table.
Not even that. She'll make 90% of the decisions in our relationship, and I'm fine with that. Yeah. But the 10% of the decisions that I make, I need to know that I have her respect and her admiration to trust me to make those decisions. Right? And how can I tell her what, financial moves we're going to make in our future if she's the one paying all the bills and doing all the stuff? It's like, where do I get off on that? Right?
Well, and I don't have that, situation. I don't have that relationship. I obviously, I'm single again. And so I don't have that, but I can tell you as a single person, as a single mom, I saw a TikTok the other day where the girl was like, I can build my own fireplace. I can hang my own shelves. I can open my own car door. I don't want to build my own fireplace. I don't want to hang my own shelves. And so it's like, it is exhausting to have everything be on your plate all the time and to fill all of those roles for your entire household, and like running a house of like, I take care of the lawn, I take care of the cars, I pay the bills, I go to work, I cook the dinners, that's exhausting. All of it falls to me, which is a whole different like not career related thing. But there is that like balance in all of those things. And so being able to have a career where like, hey, I can hire a maid because now that doesn't have to be on my plate, and I can release that mental load of those things. I can hire somebody to mow my grass for me. Like, I just have to outsource the work, right? And I couldn't do that if I didn't have the career that I have, because it would be like when the hardest my life was ever was when I was a broke single mom. I mean, my life was so difficult because I had, you have family to come help, but like it still falls to you. Your kid wakes up at 3 a.m. You're up at 3 a.m. And also you got to go to work. And also you got to take care of the garbage outside. And also the bills have to get paid. And also if I can't pay the bills because I couldn't go to work because my kid was sick. When I was a waitress, she was out of school. I'm like, I can't work today. I made no money today. Yeah. I made no money because I was an hourly waitress who made $2.50 an hour.
And you're just stressing.
And you're just stressed all the time.
Well, one of the greatest things that like loads lifted off my shoulders was when I no longer had to look at the price at certain things that I was buying.
Isn't that wild?
When I could go to the gas station.
Yeah.
And I could just fill my tank up. I didn't really care whether gas was $3, $4. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can see the difference.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was more than I thought it would be.
But you don't stress out about it.
I don't. When we go to restaurants, I don't look at the price on things anymore. And that's not to say like, like a flaunt or whatever.
No.
But what it is a constant reminder that I am 1 or 2 bad decisions away in my life to going back to that.
Going through a divorce recently, right, in a very different era than I'm in now, I realized because, when you get like more money, more problems, right? Like when you have your life tied up with somebody and you're like, wow, like we own a home together and what does that look like? And our finances are separate and all these things. That's stressful, right? And when I sat down and was like, okay, financially, what am I going to do in this situation, right? And I realized that I had options, that I wasn't locked into only one thing. And I was like, oh, freedom is options. Freedom is knowing that I have plan A, B, C, and D, and I can pick any one of them that I want, and at least 2 of them are going to work out. Like, that was freedom to me. And I remember feeling like a single mom and having none of that freedom, because it was like, you got to do what you got to do. And so being able to be in a place where I've worked hard enough to give myself the luxury and the freedom of having options was not intentional, but it was something that I learned very recently of like, oh, I now feel like I have the freedom to be able to do that.
But you also took the risk. You made the hours. I mean, you took the
I worked
initiative.
my ass off.
Exactly.
Let's not discount it. I worked myself into the ground into 2 different mental health crises and struggled and like was a broke single mom and put my physical health at risk, which I wouldn't recommend, but I did it. Like, I worked very hard.
I bring that up because a lot of times people will look at people at the, not saying that we're at the finish line, don't get me wrong, but like, let's say you're in a race and you look at the people ahead of you and you think to yourself like, must be nice or all that, but they don't see the work that had to go into getting to that position, being the single mom and waiting tables, and then slowly but surely adjusting your lifestyle, adjusting your workload, changing the paradigm of what it is that you're doing in your life in terms of the work.
I gave up a lot of things. I didn't date people.
And there was no,
like, I just didn't do that because I couldn't.
But there was also no certainty. You didn't know what this could have been.
No.
You could have easily fell flat on your face and everyone would have called you a dummy and been like, oh, look at Erin, like,
right.
She was doing just fine, and then she took a risk, and now that's the thing that drives me the craziest, actually, is because I do believe in risk and reward, and that's why I'm so big on not to get too political, but I do believe in open markets and capitalism, because I do think that you should have and receive the fruits of your labor. And when I see these people, when there are people out there that presume that wealth and prosperity is somehow like this gift that is bestowed upon you, that like, oh, you were chosen at the right time and all these. No. Like I said, there's 2 variables to that equation. It's opportunities. If you are the most prepared person, you could be the most intelligent person on the world. But if you don't network, if you don't know people, if you never bring yourself out there and you never create any sort of opportunities, what can you possibly use all that preparation for? And simultaneously, you can be the guy that knows everybody, right? You're the life of the party. But if you have no tangible skill set, if you don't have the ability to critically think or like pursue endeavors that others might not necessarily find the same value in, what the hell are you?
We used to say in the content creation space, right? Because I remember being, early in my content creation career and being an influencer and people being like, well, you only got subs because you did this collab with this person, or we think you're dating this person, or you're a girl or whatever. And it's like, cool. Somebody may have gotten them to my channel, or they may have thought that I was cute, but nobody like hypnotized them into watching. Nobody hypnotized them into like clicking subscribe on my Twitch channel. Like, I did that. Yeah. My talent or my humor or my whatever is the thing that made them do that. Nobody forced them to take an action. Sure, me collaborating with somebody might have put me in front of that viewer, but it was then up to me to translate that into an action, a view, a return view, a like, a follow. It was on me to do that, and I did that. And I think content creators generally do that. And the thing that frustrates me the most about content creators is when they are really down about, hitting the plateau or like starting to hit the incline and the decline. Yeah. Sorry. And you ask them like, well, what are you going to do about it? And they're like, what do you mean? And it's like, well, you're not helpless. Like, you got options. Are you going to reinvent yourself? Are you going to change the type of content that you're going to do? Are you going to transition out of the industry and try to, do what I did? Like, what are you going to do? And the like helpless feeling of like, I guess this is just my life now. And it's like, you're not a tree. You're not planted. Like, you can get up. I've reinvented myself 4 different times. I was a wedding planner and I was in magazines and I worked in nonprofit admin and I worked at the hospital. And then I reinvented myself again as an IT person. I reinvented like.
But you do realize that is not the majority of people.
No, and
like the majority of people, they will admit it, or maybe they will admit it, love routine. They don't want.
I mean, I love routine.
They
but
don't
I
want uncertainty. Okay, but like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, you can't love routine and security and all this other stuff and then never take risks, right? Because the age-old adage of like high risk, high return.
Yeah.
It's not just in the stock market; it's also in life.
Yeah.
Dating, like you like a girl, take the risk, buy her a drink, introduce yourself. You don't know. Like, yeah, you might get shot down, but if you never take the risk, you'll never even have a chance of reward.
Right.
It is the same.
Apply for the job that you think that you might not be qualified for.
Apply for the job that you want, not the job you got, right? It's like, the only reason I bring that up is I think that there's going to be a correlation. If there's one thing that scares me, it is this trend of like so many people trying to be content creators, which is hilarious because here I am with my podcast, right? The podcast is a vehicle. I would have done this.
It's a hobby.
Well, dude, I would do this without the cameras.
Yeah.
It's just like, why not, But when you have a generation of kids that only want to be content creators, not only, the majority want to be content creators of various sorts.
Somewhat.
Whether it's YouTube, whether it's social media, TikTok, what have you. I just find that there needs to be this grounding foundation of like, yeah, but you still want to have something that you can resort to that can generate value for you while you do this. Like, why is it that you want to put all your eggs in this basket as if this is like the end all be all? Because we discussed earlier that even if it is, let's say you are that, it still has a shelf life.
Well, and most of the people who will do content creation, they have the amount that they're sustaining. When they hit their shelf life, there's nothing left for after. Like I actually am willing to bet that the majority of content creators out there who are full-time content creators out there right now, because it's only the top 5% of the top 1% that are actually the ones that are making millions of dollars a year, right? There's one PewDiePie, there's one Ninja, there's one, right? Like there's one Asmongold. There's not hundreds of thousands of creators that are out there that are banking $1 million+ a year, okay? So a lot of these content creators are living a normal income, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. The average American lives paycheck to paycheck, right? So you say, okay, the average American lives paycheck to paycheck. That also applies to content creators. What are you doing for your retirement?
Yeah.
What are you doing for the transition out of the career? And I think sometimes they're so busy chasing the dream that they're not looking at what happens when the dream is over. Like when you wake up, what happens then? And I think that that's such a dangerous game of like, I want everybody to pursue their dreams. I think everybody can be a content creator and can provide those DIYs, can provide all of those things and can provide value. I think you should do that. I think it's a really valuable experience. I think it helps you build community. I think it helps you find your people. Great. I think you should do that. But I also think if you plan on doing it for a full time, you have to be proactively planning for 10 and 15 years down the road and saying, I'm going to pull a Jacksepticeye where once I build an audience, I'm going to make a clothing company and a coffee company. Yes. And now I can step back and make less content because I've got 2 businesses that I've built that now work for me. And so there just aren't a lot of content creators who are doing that, and they're not looking at that. By the time they get to the point where they should have launched those platforms, they're looking back going like, oh, I peaked 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's always about what's the opportunity? What's in front of me? What am I exploring? What can I chase down? What's the thing I want to take the risk on? What's the investment that I want to make? And that's tiring. When the option is go to a 9-to-5 and just do a good job and you get a promotion and you make more money, why would you want to do this other thing? Why would you want to do that?
I think it's the enticement. It's like you said, it's like this prospect. If you work the 9-to-5, you'll never be famous. You'll never have
it's overrated.
All these other things. You know what I mean? But I think it's the possibility of more that drives a lot of them.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. I think when you talk about these guys, like they're envisioning the millions of dollars. It's the same way with fighters. Like we all thought we were going to be the next Conor McGregor, right?
I love Conor.
I love Conor too.
Did you watch Roadhouse?
I did. I thought it was pretty good.
He did a good job.
You know, people were like shitting on it online.
He did a good job. For what it's worth, we won't talk about it too much. I was really impressed with it.
No, can I be honest with you?
I'm a big Conor fan.
It was like Conor McGregor was trying to act like Conor McGregor. I was like, dude, if I was the director, I'd be like, just do you. Your name's not Conor. Your name is, what was the guy's name? Knox. Knox. With Knox, I was like, just be you, dude.
They made him, I think though, that to compensate for the fact that they weren't sure how good of an actor he could be, they made him crazy. Yeah. They made him like super intense. But in the one, I'm not going to spoil it, in the scene where his last scene in the movie, I was like, oh, that's a hard scene to pull off. And he did it.
I thought it was a good movie. Was it dumb in certain aspects? Absolutely. Yes. But I thought it was overall like.
I liked it.
I like Jake Gyllenhaal too. I thought he did a good job in Southpaw.
I got to see Connor and Jake both shirtless fighting each other. Like I was like in for it. I
will tell you one thing that has ruined action movies for me personally is fighting. I used to watch the Rocky movies with like, oh my God, this is so fun.
And now you're like fake.
Now when I watch it, I'm like, Jesus. Like
he didn't even connect.
It's the same thing with like Roadhouse. I'm just like, that's not how that works. Like, spoiler warning, there's a scene where like Jake Gyllenhaal gets stabbed and he like duct tapes the wound, and I'm like,
he gets stabbed. He gets stabbed twice. He gets stabbed, and then they take it out, and then they put it in his leg. And I was like, that thing's got splinters. There's tetanus. And then he walks away. He just like walks out of the
That's not how any of this works. Which like,
it's fine.
My wife is watching it, and she's like, oh my God, that must hurt so much. I'm like, that's not how this works, guys. But so like, I have to do like that suspense of belief.
You got to suspend the belief. It's fine.
I thought it was a great movie. I enjoyed myself. We watched it because my daughter, who's a year and a half, was like pressing we were on Coco Melon.
Yeah.
And she like, I guess pressed the Amazon button and then the middle button, and it was Roadhouse because I was the one that was like.
But look at Connor. Connor's got his whiskey. Connor's now got a stout company.
Connor's the smartest.
Connor's got his fitness program. Dude, that dude is
not
business.
Not just that. He was the first fighter that like branched out. When he did the fight with Floyd.
Yep.
Connor gets a lot of bad rep. And I think a lot of it is like.
He's cocky.
No, it's not that. It's like, shut up. Because if you gave me $100 million, I'm never fighting again. So to have a guy who was already a millionaire when he was going into the Floyd fight, then becomes a multimillionaire, then launches the whiskey, then does his other deals, and then when he sells his stake in the whiskey, I mean, Connor does not have to do a damn thing in his life. He's set.
And he's still doing it.
And he still gets shit on. Like, he goes in and fights Dustin. Yeah, he got knocked out, but it's like, you're also fighting the top echelon fighters. And I understand how people can not necessarily enjoy the brashness of him, but you might not be a Connor fan, but in my opinion, you have to respect the guy, because if you gave me 1/10 of his net worth, I would never think about stepping into a cage.
Remember earlier when you said the things that like Asmongold and all those creators have done really well is they made themselves into a brand. If Connor all of a sudden wasn't cocky, would he be Connor?
No.
So there you
go. But
his
brand was himself. His brand was himself.
His brand was himself. So I mean, I'm obviously going to say it as a Connor fan.
And that's the thing is like, there's like a silver lining in this. Like did MJ act like MJ, or was that him? Did Mike Tyson act like Mike Tyson, or was that him? Or Ali, or insert any great in any field ever, right?
Yeah.
They were themselves. They would have been a star no matter what.
Sometimes people are just born with star power.
Exactly. And I think to myself, like, not necessarily that it's set in stone, but in all of human history, how many of these kinds of people are born? Let's say it's like the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with like what you were saying earlier about chasing your dreams. The only thing I tell people is like, also have a plan B. Yeah. Also have a plan B. If you do not have a plan B, then you better make damn well sure that you are that 1% of the 1%.
You should chase your dreams, but not at the cost of everything, because I think like I just get really sad when I know of people in my personal life that, you know, they're going to turn 40 or they're going to turn 45, they're going to turn 50, and they're going to look back and go, I don't have any friends. Like, this is the problem with content creation is what happens is they're like, oh, I need to stream so much. And they stream. And then they turn their camera off at 9 o'clock and they're like, well, I have nobody to call. I have nobody to text. I have no social life. I'm depressed. I guess I'll turn my stream back on, because it becomes
that is dark.
Right? And so then you look back and
what do they call that? Parasocial?
Well, it's like parasocial when it's like the viewers to the streamers, right? Oh, okay, but it kind of works both ways, where it's like, the streamer needs the viewers. Right. And so it's just this like feedy behavior where they like are feeding off of each other, and it's like this codependency. And it's like, yes, be a streamer, but do you really want to look back when you're 35, 40, 45 and go, I sacrificed everything for this? Like, is it worth it? Do you think that technology and all of the aspects, like the net positives of communication, outweigh the negatives of isolation? No. I would say that it's never been easier to communicate with people. Yep. It's never been easier to keep in touch with people. Yet simultaneously, we've never been a more lonely society than we are today. But I think that the reason for that is not the communication to blame. I think part of it is you pair it with a society where we are instant gratification. I want everything now. And I honestly, honest to God, I think one of the things that we have failed, and I see this all the time in work, as a parent, as in all of my personal friendships and relationships, I think we, somewhere along the line, lost tact, and we lost the ability to view holding somebody accountable as someone caring. If I didn't care about you, I would let you walk into that field of landmines, and I would let you blow yourself up over it. But I care about you, and I'm going to say, hey, that thing that you're doing right there, that's problematic. And people now are like, how dare you criticize me? And it's like, I'm not telling you in a hurtful way. I'm not telling you that you're dumb or stupid. I'm calling out that you're messing up. I say this with my teacher all the time. One day, you're going to go out and get into relationships and friendships, and people do not owe you, and you are not entitled to an explanation. Someone can walk out of your life for any reason, and they're allowed to do that. I'm telling you as your mother that when you talk to your friends that way, or when you treat people this way, they will do that. And I'm not doing that because I think you're bad or because I'm mad at you, but because I want you to learn these lessons so that when you go forward and somebody doesn't give you that information, you're not left wondering what happened. And we have a great relationship, and I can hold her accountable. I have found so many people lack the ability to be held accountable without turning it into this, like, why are you criticizing me? Why are you doing all of these things? And so all of that. And so, yes, it's easier to communicate all of these things, but we should be able to go to our friends and go like, hey, you're spending way too much time online. Let's like go out, let's do these things. And it's like, why are you criticizing me? It's like, because I care about you. Accountability is the most caring thing you can do for a human. To hold them to a higher standard, to pull them out when they're doing something wrong, to do all of those things. And so I think we've lost that. I think tact, we became this like, well, I'm just so real. You just can't handle my realness. It's like, no, you can be tactful. Yeah. You can say something and you can tell somebody to go to hell.
Suddenly being rude has turned into being real.
Right.
It's like, you could have said the same thing you said, just not the way you said it.
You don't have to be an asshole about it. And so I think it's the combination of all of those things. It's like we talked earlier about, we look at everything as A or B and we forget that there's a whole spectrum in between. And so I actually think it's a multifactorial problem that we've now gotten to this place where we just stopped being human. We just stopped like realizing that like life is messy. Life is complicated. Let's give people some grace. Let's give people some grace to grow and talk to them about it.
I agree with that. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, well, we can discuss where we're at and why. But in my opinion, it's like how. Like that's the biggest question is like, how did we get here? Because if we don't understand how.
Participation trophies.
You think that was what it is?
Yep.
I mean,
we started rewarding people for the bare minimum, we stopped what working hard looked like.
Can I have a hot take? I think boomers, like, millennials get shit on. And
yeah, we do.
We do. But, like, boomers, in my opinion, are the ones that have ruined the world. Like, truly. They inherited a world from the World War II era who, like, fought to create the world that they inherited. So
pretty good one.
Their parents paid the price and laid the foundation for the world that they inherited, which was infinitely better than any other world that could have been if the other side won. But they didn't have to pay the price. So they kind of navigated this world with like all these opportunities and
it was easy.
And not luxuries, but you know, I don't want to say easy. That's not the word I want to look for. Less hurdles. They had less obstacles in their path to success. And now it's like when you look at Congress, when you look at these people in positions of power, not necessarily like political power, but also like the corporate realm, it's like the elderly, the boomers are the ones who are really kind of like navigating us into these various like schisms with ourselves. So it's like, you know, how often do you hear like, oh, millennials get shit on because they want avocado toast, whatever the hell that is, you know, or like what have you. It's like all these other things. It's like you guys are talking about the population or a subsect of the population that has very limited power, very limited like earning potential.
We're not the majority.
We are not the majority. And
we're
by the way,
getting outspent now by Gen Z.
And yes,
they hold the financial consumer
well, because we're
power.
the generation of fucking school debt.
They hold the consumer power for all
I can't tell you how many of the kids aren't thinking.
Moms and Gen Z are the two most powerful
spenders.
Consumer groups.
That doesn't shock me. But I can't tell you how many of the kids aren't thinking about going to college. Like some of the kids that I coach, they're telling me they want to go to trade school. They're telling me they want to do all these other things. And you know what's funny? When I was coming up, it was like, if you didn't go to college, you were a loser. You were an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I'm looking at these kids and I'm like, perfect. Yeah. Be a welder. Go into HVAC. Be a plumber.
Man.
You're going to make $70K at age 20, 21 with zero student loan debt.
I love antiques and I love old things. And I like look at all of the things that I buy that are like antique tables and antique. Like you don't find craftsmanship today anymore because it's all cheap, fast, whatever.
Well, we don't make things here anymore.
Here is my like hope / prediction. I think, because somebody was asking me the other day, like, what do you think about AI art? What do you think? Do you think like AI art is going to like take over and devalue? And I said, no. In fact, I think AI will flood so much art into the market that people will go back to thinking that the thing was rare was the thing you made with your hands. And I said, so my hope, I actually hope that's what happens, that craftsmanship and things that can't be automated and authenticated become like someone made this with their hands, and that's amazing, because everything can be made in an automated way. That like the rarity of something being handcrafted becomes the priceless work in and of itself. That's what I hope.
I would love to agree with you, but if there's anything I've learned about consumer patterns, it's that not. If it's cheap and fast, that's what I want. Because if people actually care
I'll be the dummy that's buying all the handcrafted. I'm keeping Etsy, I think, in business.
Not that there's not a market for that, but what I'm just saying is like...
It's not the totality.
Our generation is the generation of the people that'll like, you know, put a black screen on their Twitter profile, but they won't do anything with their money. Like you'll complain about, I don't know, wealth inequality, yet you know you got a Prime membership. It's like, dude, you're funding with your dollars the industries that you presumably
And I don't think that's why I stay out of a lot of those conversations, because I don't think I'm informed enough to understand like what does good look like when it comes to your activism or your words. Like I just don't know.
To be honest with you, it's not even about good or bad. Like I don't necessarily think Amazon is bad or good. It goes back to what I was saying like before. It's like perspective, right? Like you could say that Amazon's bad because like these warehouse workers are like working under certain conditions. Like, yeah, well, they have a job.
Actually, Amazon has very strict labor requirements for the folks that they allow to sell on Amazon Actual. And I know that because Twitch sells all their merch through there. And we used to have to go through all of these fair trade, fair labor policies that they would not allow us to work with vendors that didn't meet the strictest requirements in order for them to be able to do that.
Yeah. I just don't foresee a world, like I'm trying to bring it back, is like, because you were saying about AI and art. I hope you are right, but I think what's going to happen first is white collar work will be replaced because that's the most expensive labor right now and the most general labor. Like how many data analysts are doing like entry level stuff that you can easily automate like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can tell you for a fact that like when I was working in Excel, I used Visual Basic to automate the majority of my job, and like my employers never knew, like was never none the wiser, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if I can do that within Visual Basic, imagine what like an AI model can do. Like a language, lawyers will become obsolete. Coding will become obsolete over time. That's what scares me. And then when those jobs go under, you're going to have a large population of people that were used to making a lot of money now out of work. And what concerns me is, what are they going to do? Are they going to, I mean, if you're like 30, you can always like re-educate yourself in something different.
Yeah.
I think blue collar work will be like you're not going to AI your way into plumbing or electricity.
It's a physical thing that you have to do.
Those will be the last jobs automated. I think everything at some point will be, but it'll engineers.
It'll be kind of like unions, like it is now with like truck drivers and things like that, where you've got to do a lot of there's a lot of protections because they need the work.
I don't think we're going to.
I don't know about unions. But
I don't think we're going to legislate inefficiency. I think we're going to let it go. And in human history before, like the Industrial Revolution, I mean, there have been times in our past where there have been inventions that have like propelled humanity. Yeah. Fire is one of them, right? I don't necessarily think that we will be like left on this like stranded island of like without work or whatever. I just think the very notion of what we consider work to be will have to change. I don't know what that future looks like, but I also think that like a lot of the expenses that you have in your life are due to human labor, right? It's like, why does this cost so much? Because someone had to build it. Well,
someone had to grow it. When
AI, imagine this right now, is like, we're a very litigious country, but like, let's say you have an AI lawyer and like everyone at any time can just like pay $5 and have an AI lawyer for whatever it is that they need. Like, essentially, you now have an entire generation of people that can represent themselves at an affordable rate. And like this like big brother mentality of like a corporation like kind of bearing down on people legally would be gone. So like there is some good that comes out of that. But simultaneously, it's like you have like a whole industry of people that are now out of work, more or less. It's like you still need legislators and things like that. So I mean, like law will never go away. But I guess like the number of lawyers will diminish greatly. And the problem with that is like, what are the first jobs to be automated? The entry level jobs. But if you don't have those entry level jobs, how do you ever get the experience to become like very learned in your craft?
Well, we talk about that a lot in our career, about how do we, like, especially when we talk about like diversity at senior leaders and organizations, are like, oh man, there's not a lot of diversity in this job, or there's not a lot of women in CEO positions, there's not a lot of whatever. And it's like, yeah, but what are you doing at their entry level positions to make sure that more women are going into, like, you're never in 10 years, you're not going to have more women in CEO positions if we're not hiring more women to go into, if you're not making more women your chief of staff, if you're not making more women into these like whatever pre-executive roles, they're never going to get there, right? And so you do have to look at the totality. It's not just about like women in executive positions, but it is about, we think about it all the time. It's like, if you want more diversity, you want more people in those senior level positions,
these people at a younger,
because they're going to weed out as they go. They're going to try different careers. They're going to retire early. They're going to go leave to become moms or dads. So, only so many people are going to get to that level. And so you've got to have a bigger pool at the bottom to get more people up towards the top.
I agree.
Right. And so that exists at all places, is that like, you want the best of the best. Well, you got to build them from the start. I talk about this too a lot, about being a leader, is I really think that I can train anybody to do a job, but I can't train people to give a shit. And so I would rather hire somebody who has a lot of passion, who has a lot of that like EQ, gut. I know what the right thing to do is, because I can train you to make a go-to-market plan. I can train you to do all of those things, right? I can't train you to care. You talked earlier about how some people, need to be told what to do and some people don't. I've used this analogy as I've been like managing managers, and I've said, look, there are a couple different types of people. There's a type of person that I can say, I want you to go bake me a cake. And all they're going to ask is chocolate or vanilla. And then they're going to go use context clues, and they're going to make some assumptions. They're going to take some risks, and they're going to come back to me and they say, I baked you a chocolate cake. There's a type of person that says, bake me a cake, and they say chocolate or vanilla, and I say chocolate, and they say, do you have a recipe? And I'm going to give them a recipe, and then they're going to go follow the recipe that I gave them. Then there's the type of person that's going to say, will you show me how to bake it first, and then I'll bake it.
Oof.
And there is not anything wrong with those three different styles of learning.
It depends.
Well, right, but
what level are these people supposed to be at? When you factor into the equation,
we're talking about entry level. We're talking about entry level people.
Even then.
But if I have to show you, and then I show you, and then you ask me to show you again a second time, that's when it gets the problem. But each one of those learning styles is different. It's a level of like intuition and gut knowledge that not everybody is going to have that. Just tell me chocolate or vanilla, and I'm going to come back to you. I think that's the type of person I think that I am, that helped me get to where I am today. And there are some people that are just like, give me the recipe and I'll go do it.
This is why I'm not a manager, and this is why every manager I've had has loved me, because like I'm very much the case of like, if I have to tell you what to do, if I have to tell you how to do it, why are you here? You come into this job with a skill set. I am already under the assumption that you can critically think, because if you can't, you're not going to last long. Right? So I have no problem if someone is coming and asking like, hey, I know how to do 80% of this, but there's like 10 or 20% of nuance, and I don't want to mess this up. I need your input.
Sure.
And then you show them once or twice, and then they get that. But if someone is coming up to me asking me to build it from scratch with them, I have no need for these people, because you didn't even try to help yourself before asking for help. You asked earlier about the interview process. When I was at Credit Control, we used to interview people like interns. I had one question I would ask these interns, because what else am I going to ask an intern? Like, you don't really have like
the experience.
You have no experience. You don't have any like networking.
Why do you want to work here?
Exactly. So I would just ask them one question. I would say, I gave you a deadline. You're not going to make it. What do you do? And like some of them would be like, what do you mean? I was like, I said you're going to need to do this thing by the end of the day. You have no idea how to do it. What do you do? Some people were like, I would find a way, whatever the hell that means. And like, some people were like, well, I would try to, I was like, no, you're not going to make the deadline. Finally, the person that we hired was like, his name escapes me, but he was the only black guy we hired. And he said, I would come to you and swallow my ego and say, hey, I don't want to miss this deadline. Can you help me? In that aspect, he showed humility in all these things. And even though it's a direct contradiction to what I just said, like I wouldn't hire someone.
But you want honesty.
But I want someone who can swallow their ego.
Yep.
And it's like, I need to know that when when the chips are down and the time is rough, that you're going to do whatever it takes to get this done. That's fine. But if your first reaction is like, deadlines for a week, I don't know how to do this, can you show me once? Bitch, you better YouTube it. Google it.
Go ask
Before you
somebody.
come to me, get 20% in and be like, hey, I did a little bit and I don't know. At least show me that you put effort. If you didn't even put effort and you're asking for help, why are you here?
I remember.
Especially, by the way, these salaries are not like 30K, 40K.
No,
these salaries are like 80, 90, 100K.
Yeah.
When you're getting paid six figures, figure it out, dude.
I remember when I moved into marketing from partnerships when I was at Twitch. And the first time I ever got asked to make a GTM, it's called go-to-market plan. It's like basically like, what's your campaign going to be? And like, what are you trying to say? And who is your audience? And what are you trying to do? My boss was like, okay, I want you to go write the GTM. And I was like, okay, do you have a template for me of like how you want to receive this information? Really what I was like, what the fuck is in a GTM, right? And I was like, okay, do you have a template or like an example of like what this would look like?
Document.
And he goes, nope. And I was like, we don't have a template for a go-to-market plan at all at this company. And he goes, nope. And I don't know if that was true. I don't know if we actually did. And he was like, I want to see you go figure it out. But I was like, guess what? I went to Google and I was like Googling what's in a go-to-market plan. And I like took some crash course marketing classes. And then from there, I went and I asked for educational reimbursement. I went to Harvard and I got some certifications in business strategy and some different things, some data analytics and all this stuff so that I could go long-term, figure out how to do the job. But my boss was like, no, we don't have it. And what was I going to be like? Well, then I'm not doing it. I was like, okay. And so I was so mad, but I made the go-to-market template that they still use today. So it's like, and then when I went to my team, I was like, hey, just so you know, if you have to do a go-to-market,
this is where it's safe.
This is what it, like, you could copy my homework and make it different, but like, here you go. And I don't know, maybe he did. Maybe he wanted to see how I would fare with no guidance at all. Maybe we just worked in a really crappy organization that did not have their stuff together. I'll never know, but I am thankful for the fact that I had to go figure it out. I'm thankful for the fact that I had to read like what's an RTB.
It taught you so much about yourself and what you're capable of, and you don't even think about it at the time.
No, I don't. And at the time, I just remember being super mad that I was like, you're gonna ask me to go do this thing. You can't figure it out, right? You know what I mean? But like I figured it out and I learned and now I know.
And that's not to say like this is not a universal thing. Like if you're gonna be doing something that's like high volume, low brain, of course I'll show you how to do it the first time. Because it's not a test on whether or not you can do it. But when it's like we are paying you money to fix issues, do not come to us with the issues that we told you to fix. That's the part where I'm kind of like, why are we paying you what we're paying you?
Yeah. So if we were going to recap 3 things from this episode of the 1,000 things that we talked about.
AI is the future and it scares me. No.
That's not what it is.
No, I think technology, if I were to do a synopsis of this, technology is a beautiful opportunity. It can create a lot of value at the micro level and at the macro level. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean value in the terms of like monetary gain. It could be, we were talking about content creators, but think about the millions of people that are content consumers, that their lives are now better because they are consuming whatever various content they are. Like I love various podcasts, various shows. I'm a content consumer, right? So like my life is better for it. So it's not just value in the sense of monetary gain, but just like everything else in life, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There is a darkness to this as well. And for every success story, there's 100 failures. And all I want is for everyone coming up to kind of temper expectations a little bit. Yeah. Operate in the realm of reality. Chase your dreams as much as you want up until the point where reality is now taking a hit for it. Yeah. And then simultaneously, I mean, we kind of had a couple topics that were just thrown off, but the one reason I wanted to bring you on was because you come from a world that like kind of molded around you and you used context clues, critical thinking abilities, and your intellect to navigate your way through this and look at you on the other side. You're a success story. I know a lot of entrepreneurs, and though you didn't like start your own business, you have a lot of entrepreneurial tendencies. Yeah. You're not really risk averse. Yeah. You're creative. You're looking for solutions to problems that might not necessarily have a concrete solution available to you. There's no playbook. You're kind of like stumbling and laying a pavement underneath you as you're doing it. Yeah. And maybe you weren't right all the time, but you were right enough of the time to now be where you're at now.
I think for me, my parting thing would be, I want people to pursue their dreams.
Of course.
But I want people to not be so laser sighted in on those dreams that they leave every opportunity around. We started off by me saying when I was in college, Facebook was just now coming out and YouTube wasn't a thing and Twitch didn't exist. If I had settled for what I was doing right then, I would not be where I was today. But because I continued to be like, oh, that's interesting, I might take my skills and see what I can do over there. Hey, that might be interesting. There's an opportunity there that like makes me feel inspired and happy, right? I reinvented myself. I was a wedding planner, and then I did the physician and nurses things, and then I was a YouTuber, and then I worked for Twitch. Like, I had to reinvent I worked in IT. Like, I reinvented myself multiple times. And if I hadn't done that, one, I wouldn't be near as good as what I am today, because I wouldn't be as multifaceted and multidimensional and have all those random experiences that I use in my day to day. And two, I wouldn't even have got here because I would have been so focused in on that thing over there that I wouldn't have taken advantage of the opportunity that kind of fell in my lap, right? And so it's really like, yes, pursue your dream. But if you want to have, this unforeseen success, you want to be part of an emerging industry, the only way that you're part of an emerging industry is if you go through the things that are not where you thought you would be. You have to take the uncharted path. You have to do the thing that you didn't think was possible, or the thing that you didn't know 10 years ago was going to exist, and like follow that up. And I just don't want, I think it's terrible that we tell kids that they have to figure out what they're going to be at 18. I think that's not smart. I think you should have some type of thing, but then be pliable and moldable, whatever.
I just don't know the solution to that though, because what else?
And it's what you have to do. You have to have some type of path. But I think it's just encouraging people to create environments where they feel safe to take risks, where we can hold ourselves accountable, where we can encourage people to do the thing and leave room for growth and humility and all of those things. I think that's what they do. So like, I just want people to do the thing. You want to go do the thing, like go do the thing. And if it doesn't work out, you can reinvent yourself. I've done it 3 times. And it didn't work out the first 2. And I'm glad it didn't, because now I'm where I am and I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And I love my job and I love the people that I work with. And I'm so inspired when I go to work every day. And I live the life that I always wanted to live. And I would not have known at 20 or even 10 years ago when I was a waitress, couldn't pay my paycheck. I could have never pictured I would be where I was today. And it's just important to like do the thing, take the risk, and be smart and be humble and work hard and kill it.
Aaron, we've been on now for like 2 hours. I have one of the things I wanted to do with this podcast is at the end of every episode, I wanted to ask whoever it is that is my guest just one simple question. And that is like, because we're going to have a lot of people from different walks of life.
Yeah.
If there was one piece of advice, either like a lesson you learned through hardship, something that you yourself now cherish, or perhaps a way you walk this world that you've realized like this is a path for success for me personally. What is one thing that you would tell someone 18, 19, 20, like on the cusp of adulthood, but still learning a lot of things? Maybe a lesson you learned, like what's one piece of advice that you would give them?
My mom said this to me when I was 8 years old, and I have lived my life this way my entire life. And I'll tell you the story of what it was, and I'll tell you exactly what the phrase is. My mom was a teacher, she's retired now, went to school for art. She was an art major. And so my mom was trying to teach me how to watercolor paint. And so she gave me this like very famous painting she wanted me to recreate. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not Van Gogh, and of course I messed it up. I was 8 years old, and I got so upset and I cried and I was like, I messed it up and it's ugly and it doesn't look like it's supposed to. And I'm a perfectionist and I thought I was creative and look at me, like I ruined this painting, whatever. And my mom looked at me and she goes, Erin, a real artist will make a masterpiece out of a mistake. Sit down and go fix it. And I have lived that motto my entire life, that every time something messes up or it's not the way that I thought that I could go, I'm an artist of my own life, and I will make that mistake into a masterpiece, and I will turn that thing into a positive, and I will do the very best that I can. And that's stuck with me my whole life. Like, I've made mistakes, it was hard to be broke. And the first Christmas that I had with my daughter, I had to go to Goodwill because I couldn't afford to even go to Target and buy her stuff. I had to choose between going to the doctor and getting antibiotics or being able to go to the grocery store because I didn't have money. And that was so embarrassing for me, and that was so hard for me to be able to do that. And I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna live my life the way that I need to. I'm gonna make this mistake into something that I'm proud of. And that would be it. That would be like, it's not too late to fix the thing. you can fix the thing. You are the artist of your own life, and don't be so hard on yourself to think that because it wasn't. You and I have talked about my perfectionism thing all the time. And I don't do that with myself and who I am as a person, but I definitely do it with my career, my life choices, the way I am at my own. So that would be my thing that like has always just stuck with me since I was 8 years old. I could get it. I have tattoos. I probably should get it tattooed on my body. But that would be it. That would be like, just make a masterpiece out of the mistake and just go fix it and Van Gogh your shit, you know?